Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 300 and what is it? 26 of Keeping Karlsson. Hi, Brian.
Hello. Hi for the 320. Actually, it's not the 326th time because I haven't been here for all those times. But hello on behalf of Keeping Carlson for the 326th time.
You know what? The whole numbering is kind of off because we have some that we just call bonus episode. Also, short shifts aren't part of that numbering. So we've definitely done like closer to like 400 shows. I don't know how many Brian's
Yeah.
been on. If anyone wants to go and like look into how many appearances Brian has made on Keeping Karlsson.
Look, something like 140,
Right.
145. What do you think? I thought of like changing the counting to be like season like 6, episode 1.
Yeah, something to consider.
I'd do it.
Would we go back and rename the old episodes or
No,
just
we would just suddenly change the naming convention.
all right? Well, I guess we should maybe not do that mid-season, but that's a good idea for next season, I think. But I like it. I think it makes sense. Let us know. So thanks everyone for joining us live. This is the classic Keeping Karlsson YouTube pre-show that everyone clamors for, I'm sure.
Can say hey to the chat. K Towney, Fabio, Shams,
Patty,
Lewis, Matthew, Patty,
the whole
Sir
crew is here.
Fonte,
We
KK
got
ready to kick some butt.
I'm ready. Yeah, it's the motivation from the chat that's going to make it a good show. So yeah, once again, I'll just do my typical. If you're watching the YouTube video, we'd always appreciate if you also subscribe to the podcast version of the show and download it, even if you don't need to listen to it. Just Blue Wire, who's our partner, that's how they're tracking our successes based on the audio downloads. So if you don't mind, but we definitely appreciate you being here. So thank you. And if you're watching this after the fact, you could join us any Sunday night at 7:45 p.m. Eastern time, keepingkarlsson.com/live. And you could catch this live show where we talk about games that are in the middle of the game. Though there's only one right now, actually, just Chicago and Detroit to finish off the week.
So there won't be much of that.
That's
Elon,
nice.
do you want to guess how many players on my opponent's team this week outscored Connor McDavid?
Well, remind me what McDavid did this week.
So
he got shut out by the Leafs. I know Jack Campbell shut him out.
That hurt. So he had he played thrice and had one classic McDavid game with a goal, assist, and 8 shots. And then another game he had a goal on 2 shots, and then the other game he had just a single shot and a hit.
Okay, so he had still a point per game overall, which is you can't complain too much.
18 points.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know how many more did your opponent have? Like, I guess your opponent has 18 players on their roster, so I guess maybe 9 of them were higher.
A lot.
8?
Andre Palat, Dustin Brown, Dominic Kubalik, Shea Weber tied him.
Is this good? I don't really care actually.
Okay,
like,
all right.
How many people got above 18 points on your opponent's roster?
A bunch. Well, yeah. Like I think it's more the names that's crazy. Like I'm so sad. Like I need McDavid to be better than Dominic Kubalik.
I mean, if your team needs McDavid to be more than a point per game to be successful, then it's like on one hand, like you'll get it most weeks, but also it's like you should have more empathy for those of us who have Mika Zibanejad or Taylor Hall, who I just want 1 point in the week will be nice.
I have Evgeny Malkin, so I'm kind of experiencing that.
Yeah, so I don't think you're gonna get much sympathy for McDavid.
Sure. I hear that. I just I was thinking about it today. Like, do I have a right? Like, is there principled reason to be really disappointed when McDavid isn't McDavid in a given week? And I don't think so. But the one reason I thought that maybe it was justifiable is because if you get him, you're at the start of the snake, right? So you have to wait so long until you get
but the reason why he's so great is even when he's quote unquote not McDavid, he's still a point per game for you. So that floor can't be beat. So that's built into his McDavidness. He's not going to get 5 points in every 2 games.
I don't know. His average fantasy points per night in a cupful before last night was 9.5 points, and it's down to 8.4 now.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry that McDavid. If you don't want him, I don't know
I'll trade him across your division.
If the tier 1, I think it's Jeff, right? I don't know or maybe it's Jesse. I don't know. So whoever has McDavid in tier 1, if you're listening to this and you're tilting like Brian, then I'll be happy to take him to trade him and pay Zibanejad plus Taylor Hall for McDavid. So how about that? That's a pretty good offer, I think. All right, so Brian, ready to start the show?
I actually have some questions about whether you'd buy or sell Zibanejad for a couple players on the show today.
All right.
And Fabio, but just before we start, Fabio, we're going to talk about Jack Campbell in not too long.
Are we?
Yeah, he's on the show tonight.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Wait, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I haven't
We
made.
talk about Freddie Anderson.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. Oh, and I brought up Matthews earlier. I should combine those. Okay. I'll remember to do that. Jump to Campbell. Jump to Anderson. Okay. All right. So let's start the show. Here we go. Oh, wait, I haven't thought of my joke. Damn. Oh, I'm killing all this time. Okay, so I'm going to say hosted by two guys who are bummed to lose Linus Allmark, but happy to have a stream spot. That's kind of boring. I should really think of these beforehand. Brian, you should come up with one. If anyone's got a joke for me in the chat right now, you're muted, I think. I didn't hear that.
Oh, do you still have Raquel?
No.
Okay.
Why should I?
No, I thought maybe like you could just be happy about having held him long enough.
Why, is he doing well today?
No, but he did well last night. He looked
Like
amazing.
One game.
Yeah, I mean, he often looks good, but he finally cashed in.
Yeah. What, one goal?
Yeah. But
Okay.
like,
I mean,
think
I didn't think he was.
I was watching the game, and he like was clearly like every time he had the puck felt dangerous.
Okay, I've got my joke ready, so I'm ready to go.
Is it going to be about how much I like?
No, it's not.
Raquel?
It's not about you. Not
Wow, you were thinking about something else while pretending to listen to me. Good for you.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, Elon.
I know it cuts, but it's okay because it's just for the Zoom.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay. I'll lean back, though. It doesn't hurt to lean back. Okay.
Lean back.
Okay, here we go. Yeah. Yes! Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest-running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who are so sorry for recommending drafting Linus Allmark this year. I'm your host, Elon Dubrovsky, and with me, as always, the fantasy hockey robot, Brian Calm.
Hello, Elon. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I mean, we had the best intentions suggesting you draft Allmark and Cam Talbot and Mackenzie Blackwood. Like, these were three goalies who we all had big designs for this year, and neither one has had much of a chance to prove themselves. So hopefully you had some good plan B's, C's, and D's for those guys.
Yeah, to be fair, Allmark, Talbot, and Blackwood have all been great when they've played. It's just, unfortunately, especially for Allmark now, out at least a month. We'll get to him in just a sec. Real bummer for anyone who was excited to get him back when Buffalo finally started playing again. He was looking good. And then bye. But okay, Brian, you know who's not saying bye? Us. We've got a big, long show. So we're saying hello to everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Keeping Karlsson. And we've got a doozy. So many injuries, outjuries, hot streaks, cold streaks, all the goods. We're going to be with you for at least 90 minutes, probably more. So strap in. Before we get into it, though, of course, let's thank our favorite website in the world who is presenting this podcast, DobberHockey.com. That is your source for all your fantasy hockey news. You got your articles, daily ramblings, and then, of course, Frozen Tools, the #1 tools website. I use that to prep every show and to plan out all of my fantasy comings and goings. That's how I play fantasy, is I'm over there, Frozen Tools and DobberHockey.com. Check it out. But with that, Brian, okay, let's get into these injuries and start with Linus Allmark. He's going to miss at least a month with a lower body injury after getting hurt on Thursday versus the Devils, making a stretch save. Man, just so rough, right? And it's also kind of frustrating. I don't know, like, this is just me pontificating, but like the Sabres played him Monday. It was a 5-game week, right, for the Sabres, and they played him Monday, Tuesday, and then again on Thursday. I wonder if maybe they could have rested him and maybe would, but who knows, right? I mean, maybe the save would have happened either way. But man, Allmark had been playing great. He had a .919 save percentage in the 12 games he played, but now he's out again. And obviously, I guess the implication is that it's time for Carter Hutton to take over. You'd assume he was actually decent enough in Saturday's 3-0 loss to Philly, stopped 36 of 39, but he's still sitting at an .896 save percentage in 7 games on the season. Really hard for me to have any faith in Carter Hutton or to recommend him to our listeners. But then who else is there? We've got 25-year-old Jonas Johansson, who played today in another 3-0 loss that the Sabres took against Philly. By the way, man, anyone who was excited about a 5-game week for the Sabres, not many goals in those 5 games, 2 shutouts on the weekend. But yeah, Johansson, what did he do? Stopped 35 of 38, .921 save percentage. That's decent. But Brian, I guess actually let me start with just asking you, who is this guy, Jonas Johansson? Is he someone people should care about? I guess I'll also throw out there that there is another guy in the depth chart, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who's the one that people are actually excited about, thinking he's like maybe the future prospect goalie for the Sabres. I wonder if at some point, if Hutton or Johansson aren't like, playing up to snuff, if maybe Luukkonen gets a shot. So why don't you just give people a summary of your thoughts on the Sabres' current goalie situation and if we're going to recommend going after any of these guys?
Okay, let's start with Jonas Johansson, who in the
Oh no, I was like Jonas Johansson and you're saying Jonas Johansson, so I blew it.
Okay, I'll go Jonas.
No, you're probably right. Though, man, has anybody been watching Dark? It's such a good show. You say Jonas, he's like the main character, and man, that's a good show. So that's a little side note for all of you. If you're losing in fantasy this week like me, you could just go watch Dark and forget about it. But okay, Brian, Jonas or Jonas, Johansson or Johansson, tell us.
Okay, Jonas Johansson, who, by the way, has a name in the great tradition of goalies with similar first and last names, started by everyone's favorite goalie for Philly, Boston, and Washington, Pete Peters. Everyone who was watching hockey with me in the early 80s knows who he is. Oh, that was not even a good joke. Sorry, I'll just
an edit point.
I'll just start over.
Oh God. Okay. We have no time for jokes.
Okay, here we go. Jonas Johansson, continuing the great tradition of goalie names where the first and second are very similar, started by Pete Peters, Philadelphia, Boston, and Washington alumnus. But Jonas Johansson in Buffalo, Elon, you really just tossed off that stopped 35 of 38 shots against for 921 save. That's fine. That's really good. Like, he did really well. Philly was all over Buffalo this afternoon, and he handled it quite well. Who is this guy? Who is Johansson? 25 years old, was a third-round pick, 61st overall of the Sabres back in 2014. This is fifth pro season, and there hasn't been a lot to love so far. Although keep in mind with goalies, they're young, they work on their game, and as they work on their game, they're not as good. So you're not always looking at a goalie's minor league numbers and making grand assumptions about whether it means they're on track for success in the NHL. But Johansson did finally have a good season last year in the AHL with a .921 save percentage in 22 games. Like I said, nothing remarkable outside of that. I think he has like an okay chance of being an okay NHL goalie, but he doesn't have a blue chip pedigree or anything that I think that probably sets him above Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, or you said Luukkonen. That sets him above Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who does have that blue chip pedigree, but I guess is going to get a little more seasoning, especially if Johansson keeps playing as he did today. Of course, Luukkonen, a 21-year-old goalie picked in the second round, 54th overall back in 2017. He has an .890 save percentage in 4 AHL games so far this year. So maybe he should conquer that league first or work out whatever kinks in his game need to be worked out there. I think things look good for Jonas Johansson, and there's not a real high bar to clear to be the starter ahead of Carter Hutton. So, of course, the caveat, if you're planning on adding any Buffalo goalie, is that Buffalo has been freaking awful, right? My opponent in the Cupful this week had Elliott and Carter Hart. So got the two Philly back-to-back shutouts on Saturday and Sunday that had me on tilt. And it is emblematic of Buffalo's offense this year. They're actually not bad defensively, which is good news for their goalies. Their defensive protection in Buffalo is actually just outside the top 10 in the league, but the offense is worse than all but 5 NHL teams so far this year. That said, I still want to believe that Buffalo can do better than they've done so far. They have the lowest PDO in the league, and I don't think they're actually as bad as they've looked. But of course, don't be too stubborn on forcing Jonas Johansson or Carter Hutton to work in your lineup while Buffalo is clearly in disarray and trying to figure out what the heck is going to work for that team. Because clearly they haven't found it yet over 120 minutes against the Philadelphia Flyers this weekend.
Yeah, I think the way I would strategize here is I would say, forget about Carter Hutton. Even if he plays all the games, I don't want him because he's like too scary to roster. I'd say like, if you want to, don't rush to grab Jonas Johansson, but say if he's announced to be playing a game, you need to grab a spot start goalie anyways, grab him. And then at that point, if he plays well, then, hold him and see if he also gets the next start. And maybe that's the kind of thing where that could roll into potentially someone worth holding. But I'm not rushing to grab Jonas Johansson because probably it'll be 50-50 or maybe even Carter Hart or not Carter Hart. If it was Carter Hart, it would be a different story. But probably Carter Hutton ends up getting the majority of the starts just because he's the one who made the team over Johansson. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, I guess so, but Carter Hutton hasn't really done anything to deserve to be the incumbent,
sure.
right? If Johansson keeps playing well, then maybe he just gets to keep playing. But I'm totally with you on your take. I wouldn't add Carter Hutton for any reason, but if Jonas Johansson looks to be getting at least a timeshare, then yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah, so here's another.
And playing well.
Of course. I mean, he had one good game today, sort of. He led him 3 goals. Okay, anyways, okay.
38 shots against.
Okay, sure. Why? So it's fine. I'm not going to, give him the Calder now. So by the way, there is another goalie potentially in the picture. Like, I don't know. I haven't heard any rumors. All I know is Alex Stalock got waived by Minnesota today, and Buffalo, having just had this injury, who knows? Maybe Buffalo would be a nice place for Stalock to sign. So we'll have to see. Like, he's apparently back skating. Like, back on January or February 14th, there was news of Stalock skating. Stalock, remember, had that good run with Minnesota last year. So I don't know. Let's not dig into that. It's just rumors, but something to consider. Okay, so as far as these terrible forwards that you were talking about, Jack Eichel is back, which you'd think would be good, but didn't help. He didn't score any points today since Buffalo got shut out again. Taylor Hall is looking like a complete bust lately. We had tweets from 2 of our fans, Scuba Steve and Brody Campbell, both basically begging us for permission to drop Taylor Hall. So checking in, 12 points in 19 games now, only 3 assists and no goals in his last 10 games. He actually hasn't scored a goal since the season opener. Brian, are we ready to give Scuba Steve and Brody permission to drop Taylor Hall in their somewhat shallow league? Or is there any reason for hope that he can be a great buy low candidate at this point? This is just not going well at all.
Yeah, Taylor Hall has not yet scored a goal at 5-on-5 this year in 18 games. This is not what you expect from Taylor Hall, especially in a season where he has so much to prove. He's on a show me contract, 1 year, and the next contract that he wants a lot of term on is going to be determined by how he plays this year. So it's really, really surprising that he's not able to put it together. He's generating a little less offensively at 5-on-5 in terms of shot generation, but I'd expect Taylor Hall to have scored at least a couple goals on the 32 shots he's taken. Also, his teammates aren't helping him at all. Everybody's shooting beneath 5% while Taylor Hall is on the ice, and he has just 6 points at 5-on-5 in 18 games because of his and his line mates shooting failures. If it weren't for Taylor Hall's 6 power play points so far, his season would be a complete disaster. So at least he has those. But because I think he probably should have scored on more of the shots he's taken, and I think his teammates probably should have scored more on the shots they've taken, I think Taylor Hall still is a reasonable buy low. I think he's too good a player to not figure it out. Of course, as I just mentioned, Buffalo is a team in disarray and they have a lot to sort out, but I still feel like Taylor Hall should be able to come out above that and still be able to do his thing. Maybe you're not looking, we were never hoping when you're looking at Taylor Hall, I think 70 points is a reasonable benchmark to set.
Oh, please. I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, of course you would take that now. I'm saying if you want to adjust your expectations, maybe 60-65 is fair. And then maybe you could buy him low at that price. Or if you're considering dropping him in a shallow league, make sure you've got at least a 60+ point player to replace him with. I wouldn't be ready to do it though.
Man, so, okay, here's one ray of hope, maybe. The fact that the Sabres got shut out twice this weekend maybe will mean that they shake up the lines because Hall's been playing with Eric Stahl and Kyle Okposo. At least that was his line today, which is obviously not very good at all. Maybe that would have been good 5 years ago when Eric Stahl and Kyle Okposo were stars in the league. Right now, I would love for a little shakeup, maybe get Eichel, Hall, and Reinhart going. I think that's what it was at the start of the year when Hall was getting some points. So that's what I'm asking for from the Sabres moving forward.
Yeah, I read this article from John Vogel at The Athletic about how Ralph Kruger is constructing his lines and roster and what, essentially it was built around the question, how is Jeff Skinner not a top 12 forward in Buffalo?
I was hoping we were done talking about Jeff Skinner at this point on the podcast.
Well, I just feel so I'm not going to talk about Jeff Skinner, but I am going to mention how the way that Vogel justify the roster creation, at least in Ralph Kruger's mind. Okay, you need this face-off guy. You need this guy really only there as a PK specialist. You need this guy here and this guy here. And it was just so many things that don't, like, I guess to Ralph Kruger, add up to a really solid system. But to me, what it did is it made me worried that Ralph Kruger is so subscribed to this system that he's not going to do anything to jolt the offense free, because so much of it is about a solid two-way, defensively responsible, penalty kill oriented team, when the Sabres just desperately need offense. The defense is fine.
Yeah, I really feel like if 2 straight shutouts isn't going to be enough to make him want to jolt the offense, then I don't know what would be. And I guess you would need a new coach at that point. So we'll see if they shake things up for the next game. That's something I'll be watching at Game Day Lines on Twitter to see if we're going to see any new Sabres lines. Okay, next injury on the list. Tomas Hertl is on the COVID list for San Jose, so he's going to be out 14 days. The Sharks lost a game because of this on Thursday, but they were back in action on Saturday. So I guess everyone's fine. And apparently Hertl might even be fine, but he just, has to, I don't know exactly what's going on with Hertl, but he's going to be gone at least 14 games. By the way, the Sharks had an insane game versus the Blues on Saturday. The Blues beat the Sharks 7-6. You have goalie troubles when you score 6 goals and it's still not enough to win the game. The Sharks had Devin Dubnyk in that game. That was terrible. So maybe Alex Stalock, apparently the Sharks have a higher waiver priority, I'm seeing here in the chat. So maybe the Sharks go after Alex Stalock, which is pretty funny because they had him at one point. Correct me if I'm wrong.
They actually decided that they would rather Devin Dubnyk for Alex Stalock. That was part of the transaction in the offseason.
Well, but Stalock was on the Wild the year before. What do you mean?
Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry. I forget what I said.
I said they had Stalock before, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they had Stalock before. They let him go. Then he beat out Devin Dubnyk for the starter's job in Minnesota. And we're like, okay, now we want Devin Dubnyk on our team. So nothing has made sense. And I don't know if they did make a claim on Stalock. I won't love what it means. I mean, they desperately need a goalie. Maybe he can be better. I think a lot of goalies could be better than Dubnyk and Jones, but Stalock is a goalie who I think really benefited from that protection in Minnesota, which he might also find in, say, Buffalo, but he might not necessarily find in San Jose, although it's hard to be a worse option than Jones and Dubnyk.
Yeah. So anyways, I didn't even want to really get into the Sharks goaltending. It's a disaster, but we can at least look at the forwards because they did score 6 goals, which is great for fantasy. They've kept the top line of Couture, Kane, and LeBanc together, even with Hertl out. All had 2-point games on Saturday. So if you have either of those guys, that's pretty good for you. And Kevin LeBanc, by the way, has a 3-game point streak now with 5 points in those last 3 games. So I feel like he's definitely someone that should be worth a look if he's available in your leagues, especially in a deeper league, because San Jose plays Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday versus Colorado a couple times and Vegas a couple times. So obviously not the easiest opponents, but you have 3 off-day games to start the week. So I would definitely be looking at Kevin LeBanc. And then with them stacking the top line, that leaves poor Timo Meier to play with the likes of Rudolph Balcers and Dylan Gambrell on the second line, though that didn't seem to bother Meier that much on Saturday because he had 2 goals and an assist. So that's his second straight game with points after being quiet for so long. I think we just talked about him like last show or the show before, but I had to bring him up. Maybe even though he's not playing with the best line mates, if he's going to see an increase in minutes like he's seen over the last couple of games, maybe that's worth more than having Hertl as your center. So Brian, I guess what should I do? I don't really have a question. It's like, let's comment on the Sharks lines. Like, I think LeBanc is interesting. Obviously, Meier is interesting if he's still out there. I guess I should also mention Rudolph Balcers, who has points in 3 straight games. I wonder if the Sens made a mistake waiving him. He was actually on the top power play yesterday, along with that spot with Meier on the second line.
Just to be clear, it's Rudolph's Balcers, so you got to make sure to pronounce both S's at the end of his first and last name. And he was, of course, one of the centerpieces somehow of the Erik Karlsson trade. Somehow, like, that trade is just a disaster now. Josh Norris is the guy that seems to have come out of it as the one very valuable and smart piece. But
Balcers has points in 3 games. He's looking great.
So I think Ottawa probably made a mistake by clogging their depth chart with vets, boxing him out, and then waiving him, letting San Jose just take him right back after insisting that he was part of the Erik Karlsson deal a couple of years back. So that's weird. I'm not really that confident that Balcers has a lot to offer long-term. Like, he still seems to be finding his feet. Maybe he's a middle sixer with points here and there. He doesn't seem like someone super rosterable, but he is, to his credit, Dave Betton of the Stream Schemes, ludicrous streamer of the week. Apologies for the spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't listened yet. If you haven't, what are you waiting for? It's in our show notes. Stream Scheme with Dave Betton. So I'm not rushing to grab Balsers unless you're in a deep league and you need some extra GP. Kevin LeBanc, of course, is someone we mentioned as being worth a look a couple weeks back. And he's still worth that same look. He's still not seeing much in the way of power play deployment, but it's still nice to see LeBanc getting in on some offense in San Jose lately. Pretty respectable 50-point pace for LeBanc and some decent shot performances along the way. Not expecting the big breakout that we hoped to see last year and some of the year before too, but LeBanc is a pretty good guy to have on the bottom of your roster, especially while he's on this heater. And then speaking of heaters, how about Timo Meier, who was due for one? He just had 2 goals on 55 shots heading into last night's brawl against the Blues. Meier has been a 10% shooter over his career, so was due for some good times, better than those 2 goals on 55 shots. So much credit. So was due for some good times, better than those 2 goals on 55 shots. So lots of credit for Timo Meier to manage about 3 shots a game. So he was due. Oh, crap. Okay. So he was due for some good times, better than just the 2 goals on 55 shots. In the meantime, hasn't it been lovely that at least Timo Meier is still managing 3 shots per game while playing mid-6 minutes and seeing no meaningful power play time? So good on you, Timo Meier, for doing your thing, keeping those shots coming. But I do think that ceiling is pretty low for Timo Meier this year. One of the reasons, even though he's got 5 power play points this year, he's got 100% point participation on the power play, not even on the top unit. So even though it looks like he's having this power play success, it's not sustainable. So you take that bad shooting luck and you wash it out with that overly successful rate on the power play. And I think it all comes out to maybe 50 points as being a safe expectation for Timo Meier, but with great shot rates. So at least he can help you there.
Yeah. Yawn, though, at the 50 points. So I guess we would rank them if you're grabbing a shark for next week. LeBanc, then Meier, then Balsers.
Yeah, I guess I could justify putting Meier ahead of LeBanc just because you can almost count on him getting you at least 3 shots per game when you can't say the same about LeBanc. But of course, LeBanc could still get you 1 or 2 and has a better shot at pointing. So I would go LeBanc, Meier, Balsers.
Yeah, LeBanc is playing with superstar Logan Couture, who we had a bit of an argument about last week, so I'm not going to bring up again. I'm just
right, 300-point Logan Couture.
He's kept up the point per game that he was at last week. So, okay, I guess I have to bring this up since we're on the Sharks and we have an outjury. This should be noteworthy that Erik Karlsson returned for a 6-goal game, but of course, no points for Erik Karlsson. His return, very disappointing. But hey, he had 5 shots, okay? But he was on the second power play, so I don't know. Whatever. Maybe he'll. Like I said, Rudolfs Balsers, I should say, has been on the top power play. You'd think Erik Karlsson should get back there, but who the heck knows at this point? I'm glad to see him back. Waiting for him to get a point.
Yeah, what a weird turn on the IR for Karlsson. Remember, it was like he was out, and it's I think I'll be back before long. And then they put him on officially IR, or the coach said is going to be out a few games. It seemed to be a disagreement about how long he should be out for. Again, wish he would just take a season off, Erik. It's not working for you this year. Come back next year 110% healthy, assuming you can get to that part. Like, he looked okay at times last night, even though he had the no points on the 6 Sharks goal. But then he did have some gaffes as well, including leading to what I think was the goal by Sundqvist that made it 5-4 St. Louis. And you mentioned that Karlsson's also on the second power play now, which has been an idea floating around for a while now. And I'm not so surprised it happened. And I won't be so surprised if it holds. So owning Erik Karlsson. So rostering Erik Karlsson this year is not what it's ever been cracked up to be. This is a really, really rough go for anybody still toughing it out with him.
Yeah, you're happy with those shots. Like I say with Timo Meier, but he did not produce like he did. Okay, let's do some more injuries here. So Jason Zucker is out long-term with a lower body injury in Pittsburgh. Probably doesn't matter to most people because he was doing nothing this year. Obviously, people were really excited. He had a decent run when he got traded to the Pens last year from Minnesota, but so far this year, only 8 points in 17 games. Maybe he could be a potential bounce back candidate, like if and when he returns, but he's out long-term, so I wouldn't depend on it. Today, the Penguins played and they lost 2-0 to the Islanders. So I could see that the lines over at Frozen Tools here like really were shaken up throughout the game. So at times there was Crosby with Rust and Gensel, and also there were times where Crosby was with Kasperi Kapanen and Gensel, and then Malkin was playing with McCann and Tanev. It looks like for a lot of the game, and maybe and some time also with Rust and McCann. So theoretically, it looks like Jared McCann has been getting this promotion to play with Evgeny Malkin with Zucker out. But I wouldn't be surprised to see that even change. Like with all these shakeups today, and they got shut out, just like I was predicting with Buffalo. I wouldn't be surprised to see some more Penguins lines shakeups. The Penguins are never shy to shake up the line. So I just want to put it out there. In my opinion, don't rush for Jared McCann. But maybe Brian, you could say if you disagree.
No, I totally agree. This isn't the first time we've seen Jared McCann getting turns playing with Malkin and Crosby. And in that sense, in the sense that he's never really performed there, he seems like that classic Pittsburgh third wheel in the vein of Cahoon and Sherry and one-time Brian Rust, who just keep getting these turns at the top of the lineup and don't do anything with him. So I'm not sure McCann is worth your while. Of course, if you're desperate and your league is deep enough, go for it. But playing on Malkin's line right now doesn't seem to be a very good place to be. Malkin is not Malkin.
I mean, he had 5 points in 5 games before today, but yeah, I mean, I guess if I'm seeing that and getting too excited, that just goes to show that he's not the same Malkin as he's been in, another pointless game today. So yeah, it's not the best year for some of our players like Hall and Malkin, who we thought should be slam dunks at the draft. Throw, obviously, Mika Zibanejad into that pile. Bummer. Okay, so Brian, I've got some more injuries to discuss here. These next few are ones that like the player might even be back in the next game. So I'm just going to mention it if people are curious and give a quick take. But I don't think we need to dig too deep into them. Like on Toronto, Austin Matthews has been hurt for a couple games, and it's been great for John Tavares, who's gotten to play with Mitch Marner. But I saw that Matthews was skating today, so perhaps by the time Toronto plays again, Matthews will be back and things will go back to normal. If Matthews doesn't play, though, that's not great news for William Nylander, who on Saturday's game was playing with Kerfoot and Barbanov. He was on the top power play and had a power play goal versus Edmonton. So maybe it's not a big deal, but I don't love Nylander playing with those guys when he's normally playing with Tavares. And then I guess the other big news on Pittsburgh is that Frederik Andersen has been out for a couple of games. Looks like he'll be back, but also there was an ouchery in Toronto that Jack Campbell came in and shut out the Edmonton Oilers, stopping 30 shots on Saturday. So I wonder what's going to happen. I saw a tweet just today that at least for Mondays, if you're listening to this on Monday, apparently Frederik Andersen is like a game time decision, but likely won't play. So if I were to bet, it's going to be Campbell playing on Monday, and then the Leafs play Wednesday, Thursday next week. So you might be able to get 2 starts out of Jack Campbell if you pick him up right now. And then maybe more interestingly is just like Jack Campbell just shut out the Oilers and looks to be really good. And Frederik Andersen, as you recall, he started the year slow. He was doing okay. Then he got hurt. I wonder now with both of these guys healthy, hopefully, if the Leafs start going to a 50-50 split that I was, pontificating about early on in the year. And now we'll see if they're going to go for it after Campbell just had this great game.
You will see exactly how much time the Leafs want to give Campbell in net. He's at least proving himself worthy of it. Jack Campbell has been the better goalie between he and Freddie Andersen going back to the start of 2019. So that includes some of Campbell's time with the Kings, and not all with the Leafs, but still Campbell has been a bit above average per Delta Fenwick save percentage, which is our way of sort of comparing how many shots a goalie has saved compared to how many they would have been expected to save. And Jack Campbell is above that expected save percentage by about the same amount. Freddie Andersen is below it since the start of the 2019-20 season. But I don't think that number one job is quite up for grabs, right? The Leafs have been pretty committed to Freddie Andersen. Mind you, he also hasn't had anyone to push him until acquiring Campbell towards the end of the 19-20 season. If I'm a Freddie Andersen manager, I think what I'll do is I'll take solace in that Freddie Andersen is still outperforming his own expected save percentage this season over 16 games. So he's having a good year. There's nothing to be freaking out about. It's not like he's struggling. And here comes Jack Campbell just rolling up, doing his thing. But I also still, of course, as we would have said at the start of the season, expect Jack Campbell to spot start more often to give Andersen more of a rest. And of course, there's the possibility, unlike in past years, that Jack Campbell can challenge for the number one job, or at least more of a timeshare, if Freddie Andersen does fall off.
Yeah. Plus, there is obviously this big looming problem for the Leafs that Frederik Andersen is going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. They're also going to have to pay Zach Hyman. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to pay all these guys. So I think it would make sense for them to at least give Jack Campbell some games. Here's me. Like, I'm just thinking, like, if I was running the Leafs, I would want to give Campbell some games and see if maybe we can let Frederik Andersen go rather than having to give him a big contract next year. So that, maybe if they're thinking this way, then maybe Campbell gets more games for that reason. Okay, the next injury. So Evgeny Kuznetsov has missed a couple for the Washington Capitals with an upper body injury. So again, like, who knows, he might even be back by the next game. In the meantime, Lars Eller got bumped up to play with Alex Ovechkin, and he had 2 points in his last 3 games, or 3 points in his last 3 games, I should say, going into today. And then Lars Eller today, let's see, was a 3-2 win for the Caps over New Jersey, and another assist. So look at that. Eller, I think that Eller, again, like, assuming that Kuznetsov is still out, he's someone I would definitely grab. Like, you always want to have someone playing with Ovechkin. And I guess the other guy playing on that line has been Connor Sherry, who had no points today, but I don't know, in a very deep league. I think Eller is someone I'm very interested in right now while Kuznetsov is out. And Sherry is someone to, like, consider in a deeper league. And then, yeah, I guess, Brian, the other big thing with the Caps lines that I wanted to ask you about, well, actually, okay, I got a couple things. I got a lot of things about the Caps I want to ask you about. Let's actually start with Kuznetsov, who, by the way, Brian, I have him on my Cupful team, and I'm not disappointed at all that he is on the IR because he's really been letting me down. He had just 1 shot over his last couple of games. He's been on the second power play ever since returning from COVID. Jacob Verana has been on the top power play for him. So, yeah, like, Brian, like, should I be happy that Kuznetsov's out? Or I guess maybe the more actionable question is, like, when he comes back, is he like a sure thing where I'm going to need to drop someone to bring him into my lineup? Or maybe is it time to consider Kuznetsov not as valuable as he's generally been? Like, what's been wrong with him this year?
I was prepared to talk so much about Washington, but not that question.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. Just give me 1 sec.
Yes, I guess you could talk about Kuznetsov and then Eller and Sherry if you want, and then I'll get into Oshie after, and then we'll do the ad.
Okay.
Oh, and then we'll do Backstrom. Okay, and then we'll do the ad.
Okay. Hang on.
You could brag if you want. You told me at the beginning of the year that I should sell high on Kuznetsov.
Oh, I did.
But you didn't tell me, like, someone to offer to try to get.
Oh my God.
I remember I was asking you, like, who should I go for? And you were
fault.
like, I don't know. I was like, oh, okay, I don't know. Then I was like, should I go for this guy? And you're like, oh, nah, probably not. Anyways, okay. You could still brag.
Okay. Give me 1 more sec. Okay, here we go. Sure, yeah. So for Kuznetsov, I don't know if you recall, Elon. Actually, you did. Off mic, you reminded me that I was the one who suggested you sell high on Kuznetsov when he was on that super hot streak earlier this season. And I was saying it wouldn't last, but I also... I'm not saying I'm 100% right. I still think he was definitely playing above his head then, and that wasn't going to continue. But I also think this cold snap that he'd been in is also not going to continue. At 5-on-5, he's really having a tough time. One reason is that he's just not getting in on as many of the goals scored while he's on the ice that he's used to getting in on, which I don't really think that's his fault. Usually that's something we just chalk up to variance. I think the other piece here, first off, the elephant in the room is that the top power play role hasn't really been there consistently. So that's the obvious one. But I'm looking at 5-on-5, and there's enough of a drop to be like, yeah, that's something to worry about too. Sorry. I'm going to start over.
Yeah, just say, like, if he's on top power play, forget him.
Yeah. Okay. So first, I'm just going to do a very small victory lap, maybe not even a lap, a victory 200 meters about how I did mention Kuznetsov was performing over his head and that you should try and sell high earlier in the season. Not to say that I think this cold snap is going to stay as cold as it is. I mean, sure, he's off the top power play at the moment, which is not a good place for him to be. Not to say he can't get it back, but if you just look at 5-on-5 production, he's getting worse than he deserves there. He's not getting in on as many of the goals that are scored while he's on the ice, which is something that usually does correct itself due to variance. And one thing that's actually really hurting him, Elon, is an Alex Ovechkin who is not shooting the way he often shoots, right? Because Kuznetsov has spent some substantial time around Ovechkin over the past few years, and that's helped Kuznetsov's on-ice shooting percentage. But this year, Ovechkin is shooting a pedestrian 10% compared to the last couple of years when he's been shooting 15% at 5-on-5. So some things within Kuznetsov's control, and sorry. So a lot of things that are out of Kuznetsov's control. You've got his power play deployment, you've got his teammates' shooting percentage, and you've got his points participation, a couple of which will possibly correct themselves, but not all of them are guaranteed that too, and especially not all at the same time. So I am down on Kuznetsov as I was before the season, and as I remained even after his little 3-game hot streak that he had a few games into the season.
And then maybe you want to just comment on Eller and Sherry while you're at it?
Oh, yeah. And then you mentioned Lars Eller, who has been added in a quarter of the Cupful divisions this year, which you can find out about at cupful.com. Honestly, I'm surprised it's not more, especially for a Sunday stream with someone who's been as hot as he's been. It would have been a good one. As you mentioned, Elon, an assist tonight for Eller that brings him up to 9 points in his last 10 games, 3 goals and 6 assists, and a very uncharacteristic 7-shot game in that span, but a lot of 0 to 2 shot games around that. What do you think of this analogy, Elon? Is Lars Eller kind of like a Jordan Staal in that he goes on these sustained hot streaks where he's not doing anything that really shows me anything in his game has changed, but luck just seems to turn for him for about 10 or 15 games a year each season?
Yeah, I guess that's right. I mean, Eller's generally a bottom 6 guy, and I guess Stahl is that way as well. But Stahl got on that top power play on Carolina for a bit, where he was producing. Yeah, I think I like it. And yeah, Eller right now he's playing with Ov, and hey, Ov did score a goal today on 6 shots, so they're already trying to boost that shooting percentage. Of course, let me give you these full lines for the top 6. Like we said, Ov with Eller and Connor Sherry, and then Backstrom with Wilson and Verana. So you may notice a glaring omission there. And that's TJ Oshie, who's been bumped to the bottom 6 on Washington. I don't recall ever seeing this happen. It's always been like the same 6 guys in the top 6 ever since they traded Burakovsky and, promoted Verana. But Oshie was playing today with Richard Panik and Daniel Sprong, it looks like. So he's still on the top power play, which is good. He had a big 2 power play goal, 1 power play assist game versus the Devils a week ago. So 3 power play points in 1 game makes his overall numbers recently not look so bad, but he went pointless today. And Brian, I would be very concerned as an Oshie manager, maybe just because he had a couple of big games recently, that's an opportunity to try to trade him and get someone to be interested. Like obviously he won't do nothing since he's on the top power play, but I wouldn't be expecting very much production at all at even strength if he's going to be bumped by Connor Sherry. Or should we just, maybe the answer is that this won't last? I don't know. I'm curious to know what's going on here.
That's definitely the answer. That I don't think this is going to last. We're not going to overreact to this change in deployment. I think without Kuznetsov in the lineup, we shouldn't be assuming that Oshie is going to stick in the bottom 6 long term. And Connor Sherry has not been awesome, right? Coming into today, he had points in 2 of his last 3 and 4 of his last 7, 3 goals and 1 assist on 10 shots, which is okay, but it's nothing to be excited about. So I don't think Oshie's job in the top 6 is in any danger. If he is in the bottom 6 when Kuznetsov returns, then we'll have something to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, don't give him away for nothing if you're in a league where he's generally always rostered, but I would be seeing if I could dump him. Or maybe if you're in a shallower league, maybe you can at least stream him out for now, because I'm not expecting too much while he's down there.
Yeah, if you want to try and get out in front of any misfortune that involves his deployment, then yeah, you can try and trade Oshie and see if like you can get an even guy back and you just don't have to worry about this. Fine. But honestly, I don't think anyone has anything to worry about long term unless we find out otherwise.
Yeah, he's also getting up there, right? So maybe at some point he's going to have to get demoted and eventually slow down. Okay, so one good news piece on Washington is that Nicklas Backstrom is putting up his best season in over 10 years. He had 24 points in 20 games going into today, and he had another goal today. So you could just add to that. Backstrom is this is crazy, right? We had thought he had settled into being a approximately 75 point guy over the last 3 seasons. You pretty much could set your watch to what Backstrom was going to do. And then this year he's having this huge resurgence. Brian, what's going on here? Is there any chance this is sustainable? And we're going to see Nicklas Backstrom put up his best point pace since 2009, 2010.
It's really exciting, and I like Nicklas Backstrom a lot, and I'd love to say yes, but I'm not gonna, because at 5-on-5 in 20 games, Nicklas Backstrom has 9 goals on 41 shots, which converts to a 22% shooting percentage versus his usual 10%. He's pacing for 36 goals right now, and Backstrom has only exceeded 23 goals once in his career, way back like I think it's over a decade ago now. Backstrom had 33 goals, which is the same season. He had a career high shots on goal, over 200, and a career high shooting percentage as well. So things are going right for Backstrom in terms of goal scoring, but he deserves a little piece of this. One fun part about Backstrom's game this season is that he is putting up career high shot rates on the power play, which is really fun. So if he's shooting and scoring on the power play, I think he could still get up above 80 points, but I still think you probably want to keep him roughly in that 75 to 80 point range. If you're asking whether you should sell high, Elon, I wouldn't sell, like I would consider it, but I'd make sure you're actually getting equal value back. Like the mistake would be to take a 70-point player back for Backstrom. I wouldn't do that. I would just keep Backstrom. So I have a few sell high questions for you. I think I'm going to get 2 no's and a yes. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Would you trade Nicholas Backstrom for Jack Eichel?
Yes.
Would you trade
I'd rather Eichel. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Would you trade Backstrom for Zibanejad?
Ugh, no. I finally have to admit that I've messed up and I should have traded Zibanejad when I had the chance. This is not going well.
And would you trade Backstrom for Malkin?
Nah, I don't think so.
Oh, I was right. 2 no's and a yes. So yeah, you're selling high if you get Eichel back. I don't think you're selling high if you get Zibanejad or Malkin back.
What about Taylor Hall? Did you do that deal, Brian?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Even before the season started, I don't know. I would like assume, depending on your categories and how valuable goals and assists are. But if you're just looking at points, I think I would have preferred Backstrom to Hall. Is that a hot take? I guess there was a lot of hype about Hall and Eichel. They're both going to eclipse 100 points. Not that we bought into that necessarily, but I guess I was definitely open to higher than a point per game Taylor Hall, and I wasn't about Backstrom. And yet here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, I guess we should learn a lesson to never assume someone's going to play with Jack Eichel, because we thought about Skinner, we thought about Hall. Doesn't happen. The Kruger puts who he wants with Jack Eichel, and it's not who we want. I guess one final thing about Washington. So Ilya Samsonov finally returned today, and he had a decent game. Like I said, the Caps won 3-2. Samsonov stopped 19 of 21. So I guess that's it for Vitek Vanacek playing like every single game, except for that one game that Craig Anderson played. But at the same time, Vanacek was decent. So I'd imagine moving forward, I don't see why the Caps don't just go 50-50 or wait for a goalie to go on a hot streak. I definitely am not as high on Samsonov as I was going into the year, but if he's in free agency and, it's hard to get goalies in your league, probably it's time to grab him. He got a win today. I'll be very interested to see who gets the next start for Washington. Probably Samsonov, I would think.
Yeah, seems if he played well and they want to get him going, I think Samsonov is still the Capitals' first choice to be the number 1 or at least 1A, but Vanacek definitely put up a solid run in Samsonov's absence when you thought, oh my goodness, the Capitals are screwed. They went out and grabbed Craig Anderson, and then Vanacek was like, guys, I'm here. It's okay. He was solid in 5 of his last 6 starts, going 4-1-1 with a .926 save percentage, which of course is far better than anything Samsonov had done in the 2 NHL starts he had before returning today, where he had an .846 and an .889. I'm with you, Elon, that Samsonov is not the guaranteed start we thought he'd be, and that Vanacek has at least made the case to be in a timeshare with Samsonov, and now it's up to Samsonov to prove just how heavy a load he's ready to carry.
Yeah, I mean, it's his rookies, or no, he played last year, but it's his first year where he was going to be a starter. So I don't see why Washington needs to run him into the ground, especially since things are going pretty well so far. They've won a lot of games with Vanacek, so I don't see why they should take a risk, even just like in terms of injury, right? Like Samsonov's never played a really busy workload, and there's a lot of games coming up for the rest of the year. So yeah, I'm not as excited about Samsonov for sure. I guess that's not a hot take. Okay, so Brian, before we move forward with some more injuries, let's take a second and thank some sponsors for this week's episode. As people may know, our network now is on Blue Wire. We're super happy to be with Blue Wire, and we want to talk about a new program that Blue Wire has introduced called Blue Wire Hustle, which is a program where you can host your very own podcast at Blue Wire. So it's called Blue Wire Hustle, and Hustle was created to give everyone the opportunity to take your podcast to the next level. Or if you want to host a podcast and you just don't know where to start, Hustle is the perfect place for you. Like, as part of the program, you're going to receive personal cover art, Q&As with Blue Wire's top podcasters, access to a community Discord, and an e-learning course full of tips and tricks. And on top of all of that, they're going to get your show pushed out to Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, all the listening platforms, and they're going to host your show. So normally you have to pay whatever it is per month to have a host for your show, and you don't get anything out of it aside from just the hosting. And with Blue Wire Hustle, they're going to do all of this for you and also give you all of this help for only $15 a month. And that, again, like I'm saying, is the same rate as any other hosting site that they would charge you for the initial setup. So whether you're starting from scratch or you have an existing show that you want to grow, Hustle is an open door to leveling up your sports podcasting experience. I don't know. I guess I'll just keep going. Whatever. Acceptance. Brian, do you want to do the last part? Okay. Acceptance into the program is limited, so get your application in today. Brian, tell people how.
If you want to apply and get your application in, you can go to bwhustle.com/join. The link is also in our show notes. Check out if you want to apply and get your name in there, if you want to apply, you can head on over to bwhustle.com/join. You can see that link in our show notes too to find out more. That's bwhustle.com/join.
Okay. And like I said, we're going to be back very soon with some more injuries. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. All right. Okay. And we are back, Brian, again. These are injuries that we're talking about that I don't even know how long this player is going to be out, but let's just mention them. And I want to mention that Dylan Larkin missed a game for Detroit versus Chicago on Saturday. And Larkin again was out today versus the Blackhawks. This game is still going on as we're recording. And these lines are like I'm seeing here Zadina with Nemesnikov and Sam Gagner, Glendening with Helm and Adam Ernie, Mantha, who's I guess the biggest name on this forward crew with Bobby Ryan and Valtteri Filppula. I don't know. Just like if you didn't have a reason to drop Mantha before, like if Larkin is out for any stretch of time, like how could you have any interest in Mantha? But anyways, people are already starting to drop Larkin. So I don't even know like what's a takeaway here. It's just like we already said on a previous show, like every Red Wing is probably droppable except for maybe Jonathan Bernier, which is crazy to say, but he's starting to look like a legit goalie option this season. He stopped 33 of 36 in the 5-3 upset of the Hawks on Saturday. And that's now his fourth straight quality start. 3 of them were wins, which I don't know how that's possible since Detroit never scores, but somehow with Jonathan Bernier in net, they're winning some games. He has a .918 save percentage in 11 games on the season. So Brian, like I know going into the year, you were very big on Thomas Greiss being the starter. At this point, it seems to me like maybe Bernier is actually a volume starter that we didn't realize because like I said, he played the last 4 games until today. Thomas Greiss is playing because it was a back-to-back. How into Jonathan Bernier are you at this point?
When the Red Wings signed Thomas Greiss, I so overlooked Jonathan Bernier. I'm like, oh yeah, they're gonna, he's gonna come in, he's gonna be their starter. Forget Jonathan Bernier. And you were like, Brian, I think it's gonna be like at least a timeshare. And I was like, no, Elon, don't. Thomas Greiss, he's coming from the Islanders. He's been so good for so long. And here we are, right? And you were so right to stand by your man, Jonathan Bernier, Elon. He is a top 10 goalie this year in Delta Fenwick save percentage and has this insane quality start percentage. 80% of his starts have been quality for Detroit, and he's putting up a .918 save percentage. If Bernier can keep this up, he's on track to post his personal second best season ever in the NHL out of nowhere, seemingly. I guess not to you, though. This would rank behind only his inaugural season as a Toronto Maple Leaf. Meanwhile, on the other side of the coin, Greiss, going into tonight's game, had just 5 out of his 13 starts rated as quality, had an .891 save percentage, and just 1 win in those 13 tries. I think this goaltending crease situation is solved. I think it's over. Bernier started 6 in a row before Greiss took the second half of the back-to-back that's taking place tonight as we record. I think we have a clear starter here, and on a team that ranks 11th in shots against per 60 minutes. So they're, when I say they rank 11th, I'm saying they give up the 11th most shots against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, which is a really great thing if your league counts volume and save percentage. This is what we wanted from John Gibson going into the season, right? Oh yeah, he's on a defensively poor team and he stops a lot of the shots that he faces. This is what we're getting from Kevin Lankinen this year. Jonathan Bernier is a low-key free agent ad that you can make if you missed out on Lankinen or you swung and missed on Gibson. I think, and Elon, you tell me if this take is too hot, I think Jonathan Bernier is worth more than John Gibson today.
Yeah, I mean, I'll at least give it to you that they're probably in the same tier, which is already like a lot spicier than anyone would have thought. Like going into the year, obviously Gibson was drafted in all leagues and Bernier probably in none. And at this point, the fact they're in the same conversation, very hard to predict what will happen moving forward. Like Gibson has shown that he can go on hot runs, but he's also shown that he can't handle the heat for a whole season on this terrible Ducks team, which is no slight against Gibson. But, it's tough being on the Ducks this year. Should be tough being on Detroit. So I'm not like going to bank on Bernier to keep this up. But for now, yeah, he's definitely someone to look look for. I actually think the analogy here is he's what we were hoping for from Matt Murray, right? We expected the Sens to let in a ton of shots, and he just has to be decent. So that's what's happened for Detroit, and Bernier has been decent, and we'll see if he can keep it up. So yeah, that's a fun name for people who need goalies and are messaging us being like, look, my FA is empty. I need to trade. I don't know, but sometimes we get people like being like, okay, I need to trade one of my top, should I just trade Nikolai Ehlers for a goalie because I need one? And I'm like, well, first tell me who's in FA, and they show me a list. Usually Bernier's in there. So maybe before you trade away Ehlers for a goalie, try out Bernier, see how he does for you.
Yeah, for sure. Just languishing in so many free agent pools. And just a little more context on the Gibson piece. I tweeted this out before, but Gibson used to be gold in saves leagues, even when his save percentage was a little rough, because Anaheim gave up so many shots against, which was the case for like the first 7 games in Anaheim this season. But that's changed lately. 6 of John Gibson's biggest workloads this season, where he saw 30 or more shots against, came in the Ducks' first 7 games played. In 10 full games since then, John Gibson has seen 30 shots just once and 25 or fewer shots 5 times. If Gibson sees one more game with 25 shots against or less, he'll have seen as many of those in like 18 games this season than he did in 49 games last season. So the Ducks seem to have solved something in terms of their defensive game. They're actually allowing more shot attempts against than Detroit at 5-on-5, but they're blocking a lot more of those than Detroit are. So I think they've just upped their shot blocking game rather than their actual defensive game. But again, this is one reason to be into Bernier for seeing a lot of volume. And Gibson, of course, if he's off his game, which he has been frequently, when you don't see 30 to 40 shots a night, you don't get a lot of opportunities to make up for your mistakes. So even if Bernier does have a rough night, at least he's seeing a lot of shots on which he can get that save percentage back up.
It's interesting. I feel like you're talking a lot about Gibson. I know that's because you have him on your couple teams. So you're trying to work through if you should make that swap. So it'll be fun to see if any of your opponents in the couple are listening and are going to fight you for him. Okay, so let's go to New Jersey now. Nico Hischier has been out. He just came back, and now he's injured again. So that stinks. And he was out again today for the game versus Washington that we were talking about before. So with Hischier out, let's take a look at what the lines have been. So Jesper Bratt, Pavel Zacha, and Nikita Gusev. And let's just stop right there, Brian. Pavel Zacha, holy cow, this guy is on a crazy hot streak. He's got another assist today. It's 13 points in his last 12 games. I think I said last week when we brought up Zacha, I was like, yeah, I know he's on a hot streak, but he's the type of guy who, I hear his name and I assume, yeah, even if he's on the score sheet, I know it's not going to last. But, just like with a Lars Eller and a Jordan Stahl, at some point you have to stop ignoring and be like, okay, Brian, Pavel Zacha, is it time for people to go grab him? He's got 14 points in 17 games on the season right now. That is a 68-point pace when his highest ever point pace was 40. He had 32 points in 65 games last year, and that's his highest ever point total. He's already got 14 and 17 this year. Where is this coming from? Are you chatting with Ben and Lewis? You're muted also. I can't hear you.
Sorry.
Hello? Okay.
Hey. Sorry. No, I was looking something up. Okay, Pavel Zacha. I'm going to slice it another way for you, Elon. Zacha has 13 points in his last 12 games, 6 goals, 7 assists, and 25 shots with 4 power play points. I was going into tonight. Sorry, I didn't update those numbers with New Jersey's game today. But there are 2 reasons why I don't think Zacha is going to keep it up. First, similar to Timo Meier, he's getting these power play points that I'm not sure are going to stick. Yeah, different from Timo Meier in that Zacha is actually on the top unit where he's picked up a lot of his 4 power play points. But I'm also just seeing some variance markers like points participation and on ice shooting percentage on the power play that shouldn't stick. Plus, I don't know. Tell me if you think I'm wrong, Elon, but I don't know that Zacha's top power play deployment lasts, right? You've got Andreas Janssen and Nikita Gusev just waiting in the wings. Am I alone thinking that he's not long for power play 1?
I don't know. You love your cold water bucket so much, right? This guy, yeah, obviously it's not going to last. He's
very
not going to be
exciting. What do you want me to say? You're asking me you asked me, is this going to last?
Yeah. Okay. I guess I should change how I ask these questions. It's more like, should people grab Zaka, right? Like, I don't think anyone thinks that he's going to keep up these exact same rates and be an 80-point player this year. I'm more
Okay.
just wondering, like, he's doing well. He's on the top line. He's on the top power play. Maybe, yeah, don't drop a Jack Eichel for him. But like right now, like you're saying, he's in a good spot. Maybe it won't last. But while it does last, let's say, while he is on the top power play, are we going to recommend
Yeah.
him?
I think so. And I think only as long as he's on the top power play, because his 5-on-5 numbers look the same as usual. He's not seeing any more minutes. He is seeing better line mates, but also isn't doing much more with them than he's done in previous seasons where he's looked generally unremarkable at 5-on-5. So yeah, go and look at Zaka while he's on the top power play. Know that his power play production and his goal scoring, where he's shooting 20%, neither one is going to last. But when a guy's hot, he's hot. So there's my lack of cold water for you, Elon.
Sorry, what's that? Okay, sorry. I guess I pushed you somewhere where you didn't want to go. Yeah, I guess like if he's free agent, grab him. But also, obviously, if you could trade him for someone really good, then also do that. Because like Brian's saying, this obviously is not going to keep up at this pace. I'll also mention PK Subban doing pretty well lately, right? He had 6 points in his last 9 games going into today, and another assist today for Subban. So makes 7 points his last 10 games. He's the guy currently on the top power play. So I like him. Like I think if he's a free agent in your league, you need D. Like he's not the PK Subban of old, but for now, he's the one I'd want out of any D on New Jersey. And they're scoring some goals. Yeah.
Here's a lack of cold water for you, Elon. I think Subban probably deserves to be doing even better than he's doing so far. No
Ooh.
goals on 27 shots at 5-on-5. So you could even assume he should have 1 or 2 goals on that many shots at 5-on-5. But I like that Subban especially looks set on the top power play and is seeing success there for the first time in a few years. His point rates with the man advantage are up to where they were in his second last season in Nashville, which was the last time PK ran the PP for any length of time. I'm rooting for him, and I'm definitely open to Subban being a season-long hold, especially while he's holding this power play role.
And then let's go to Arizona now, where Connor Garland and Darcy Kemper are hurt, and I don't know if either of them will be long term. So that's something going on. Obviously, it's a big loss to anyone who loses Connor Garland because he's having that great season. But in the meantime, here's a name that we haven't mentioned in a while that's finally heating up again. I don't know why, but Phil Kessel all of a sudden has 8 points in his last 6 games. So I feel like Phil Kessel now becomes someone that people need to consider grabbing again. He's probably been dropped in a lot of leagues. And he's playing on a line currently with Drake Kajula and Nick Schmaltz, which to be honest isn't that great. But he's back on the top power play. I guess Connor Garland being hurt got Kessel back there. So it's probably not something that'll last. So yeah, Brian, I don't know. My initial instinct is to be like, Kessel's just going to slow down again like he always does. I remember I got excited about him in the playoffs last year when he had like a good couple of games. And then I grabbed him in a playoff pool for round 2 and he wasn't as good. So is it going to be the same thing here? Or are you seeing something new from Kessel?
My inclination is the same as yours. Don't get too excited. I don't think much has changed. 4 goals on his last 10 shots has definitely helped him. Plus, on Saturday, no shots in 17 minutes of ice and top power play. So that's always concerning. It sucks that Phil Kessel is no longer someone you can count on for at least 3 shots a night. His shot rates are just steadily declining per game and per 60. So yeah, I'm not about to get any bit excited about Phil Kessel, but I'm glad you threw cold water on it first, so I didn't have to.
Okay, yeah. Well, here I'm not going to have any more cold water to throw. So Cale Makar is hurt for Colorado. He's having a great year, but he's missed a few games now. Apparently, he's going to be out for at least the first 2 games of next week. I guess then he'll be back. In the meantime, though, Sam Girard has been on the top power play for Colorado, and he had 2 assists on Saturday, including a power play assist versus the aforementioned Arizona Coyotes. And Girard now has 13 points in 16 games on the season, which is a 67-point pace, which is pretty wild because Makar hasn't missed that many games, right? A lot of these points are coming from when Makar is in the lineup. So do you think what we're seeing from Sam Girard, I have a feeling you're going to get that cold water out, but also you've always loved Sam Girard. So what are you going to do here?
I've always had love for Sam Girard, and I'm heartened to see, as much as I want to see Byram take the top power play role when it's available, and Makar doesn't, like he's already bumped himself by not being in the lineup. I'd love to see Byram there, but I'm happy that Girard is the first replacement for Makar. As I like to say, Girard could quarterback 30 other power plays in the league. It's just his misfortune that he's behind Cale Makar. But if you're asking me whether this point pace can continue from Girard, I will say no. And one of those reasons is because of how reliant he has been on this power play production. He already has 6 power play points in 16 games. Compare that to Girard's season last year. We had 13 power play points in 70 games. So he's about to eclipse that pace, like that 13 power play point mark in the next, in 70 games. So there's no way that this pace keeps up that would have So there's no way that would see this pace keep up, that would see Girard match last year's power play point total in half the games. I guess it could if Makar is out for any length of time. That would be an opening. But even at 5-on-5, honestly, Girard is probably overperforming what is reasonable to expect with a high on ice shooting percentage, and his secondary assists are coming at too high a rate. Elon, whenever you ask me why does this look different than usual, I'll tell you because things are weird right now and it will go back to being normal.
Of course. Okay. But still, obviously, people listening should know, go grab Sam Girard.
Him. Yeah, well, he's on the top power play. Absolutely. Like, there's no question.
All right. So let's switch to outjuries now. Anthony Cirelli is back for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he jumped to center the top line, or maybe the second line. I don't know. But he was playing with Stamkos and Killorn, and then Palat was playing with Point and Tyler Johnson. So normally, for most of the year, was Stamkos, Point, and Palat, with obviously Braden Point centering the top line. So I'll be interested to, sorry, I got a message. Sorry, everybody. So I'll be really interested to see if this sticks or if the Lightning go back to what they were doing before. They did win 5-0 against Dallas on Saturday, so I don't think they'll be quick to change anything up. By the way, Cirelli, a goal and an assist in that win, and Cirelli's up to 12 points in 13 games on the season. We talked about Cirelli when he got hurt, and you took out the cold water bucket, of course, and said you thought he'd fall back to a 50 to 55 point guy. But does your mind change if he's going to stick playing with Stammer for the next little while?
Definitely, of course. Cirelli.
Wait, can you do it again? Sorry, like there was a big click when you said definitely.
That's weird.
Probably because you like unmuted at the same time that you said it.
Okay.
It only got half the D.
Definitely. You should be more interested because over the past couple seasons, Cirelli's most common line mates have been Alex Killorn, Tyler Johnson, and Matthew Joseph. So playing with Steven Stamkos is a pretty nice change for Cirelli, who I don't know, he's quite Couturier or Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, but strikes me very much in some kind of vein like that as a two-way guy who can produce if he's given the green light to, but he's often used more to defend, kind of like the Paul Stastny edit of recent years, which isn't a ringing endorsement, of course, but I'm trying to make it one. I'm saying, hey, Cirelli's a guy who might be able to do more if he was asked to, but he's often asked to be more on the defensive side than the offensive side. You're asking me if I'm going to change my projection from full season? Yeah, I'll bump him up 5 points on the season, maybe more. Like, I guess I could go up to 10 if I wanted to get real crazy, going from 50 to 55 to 55 to 60. Is that a 5 or 10 point gain? Look, I could see him approaching 60 points with significant time next to Steven Stamkos, but I am definitely a little curious about some. I'm trying to put the cold water away for the show, Elon, now that you've really pointed it out. I'm feeling bad about it, but there are certain unsustainable markers in Cirelli's game right now that I don't think knock him all the way back down to 50, 55 points. It's nice that he's playing with Stamkos. I think he'll get a boost for as long as they are together.
Yeah, well, or he doesn't even need a boost. He just needs to hold on to what he was already doing, and that will obviously help with that. So nice season for Cirelli so far. I'm glad to see him back. I thought he was going to be out longer term, to be honest. I was surprised to see him back so quickly. Philly's gotten some reinforcements back. So Claude Giroux missed some time on the COVID list, but he had 3 assists and 8 shots in his return game versus the Rangers earlier this week. No points, but 4 shots versus Buffalo on Saturday. And then today, let me just check right now how Giroux did, and another no point game. So oh no, he kind of like lost all that excitement from the 3 assist game. Now it's 3 points in his last 3 games. He's been playing on a line with Hayes and I wrote Patron. I don't think he's playing with someone. Oh, Patrick. He's been playing on a lot. He's been playing on a line with Hayes and Nolan Patrick, which just like isn't the top line anymore on Philly. Like clearly the hot line on this team is JVR, Couturier, and Joel Farabee. Brian, I just cannot believe that JVR is doing what he's doing. He had 23 points in 17 games going into today. And once again, like clockwork, right? Another 1 goal, 1 assist game. And that's obviously great for Couturier, who had a goal, Farabee, 2 assists. All 3 of these guys are unbelievable. Like, I don't even want to ask you if they can keep it up. I'm sure you'll say, I don't know what to say now at this point, now that we're sort of on edge here about like repeating ourselves over and over again, but got to say something, right? This line is unbelievable. So I don't know. Do you want to comment on them?
Yeah, I'll comment on them and just at least mention that how crazy it is, right? Because we know James Van Riemsdyk shouldn't be able to keep this up. This isn't going to be a surprise or a hot take by me or me just trying to be a bad dude. Like, there's no way Van Riemsdyk can keep this up. Although this is the first year in the last 3 that he's never been on my roster. That I didn't give him that initial chance out of the gate. So that's why it's happening. So as long as he stays off my roster, I think he might be able to continue it. But one reason that tells me he won't is his on-ice shooting percentage. We talked about Matthews and Marner's 5-on-5 on-ice shooting percentages last week and where they'd rank amongst NHL power plays. So James Van Riemsdyk's is even higher than Matthews and Marner's. So Van Riemsdyk and his line mates are shooting with an 18.5% success rate at 5-on-5, which is higher than the conversion rate of 23 teams' power plays, which is weird because that's 5-on-5 for Van Riemsdyk and 5-on-4 for the teams on the power play. And with all those extra shots that are going in that probably won't once regression hits for James Van Riemsdyk, he's double dipping on those points, getting in on 90% of the goals scored while he's on the ice. His primary assists are off the charts. His secondary assists are off the charts. So James Van Riemsdyk is just like going nuts right now, and none of it is sustainable. Or of course, a portion of it is, but I wouldn't get too pumped about him. That whole line are going to turn into pumpkins soon, which is, they're already wearing the right colors for becoming ones. They're halfway there. My question to you for Van Riemsdyk, Elon, in the same vein as I asked you about Backstrom, would you sell Van Riemsdyk for, well, you said no to Zibanejad and Malkin. Would you sell Van Riemsdyk for those guys?
I mean, at this point, I don't know, Brian. Like JVR, like if you would have said this like probably 2-3 weeks ago, and everyone would be hating you so much if they traded JVR for either of these people. So at some point, you just be like, this is a new version of him. Maybe obviously he's not going to be like above 1.5 points per game or whatever he's at right now. But this seems like the kind of guy that can sustain being worth at least like a point per game, a 70-point pace, which is probably more than I'm expecting from a Taylor Hall at this point. So I think that answers your question. And somehow, if Joel Farabee is still out there, get him because he's playing with and Couturier is obviously great. Like we already knew he was great. So he's probably going to continue to be successful. So now that JVR gets to play with him and not like a worse center like he was earlier in the year, like just all signs are pointing up. I wish I held on to Farabee in the couple. I had him for a couple of games, then I let him go. And I wish I grabbed JVR when I could have.
You let him go because he went Coles and you're like, that's the end of that. And then he got this, like, this is definitely easily one of the hottest heaters that we've seen a line get on that doesn't deserve to stay on it with Farabee, Lawton, and James Van Riemsdyk. Like, there's just no way that this continues, and it's wild that it's lasting through. We're at 18 games now where it's almost been running front to back. There were a handful of games right at the start of the season after Farabee's 4-point debut when everyone rushed to get him. They did nothing for 5 games, and now he really hasn't stopped for the last 10. It's gonna end. So yeah, go get them while they're hot. And I understand it's hard to part with them because everything is like, no, they've done it for 20 games. It's going to keep going. It's not. This is a great chance for you to get some extra value from these guys before they come crashing back down to earth.
You said Farabee, Lawton, and JVR. I don't know why you said that. It's Sean Couturier has been their center on the top line, and also Farabee, Couturier, JVR, Giroux have been on the top power play. So, I mean, you can't get much of a better spot. I'm loving these guys. I don't know. By the way, another guy who's in a really good spot that we haven't seen there in a long time on that top power play, like I said, Giroux, JVR, Couturier, Farabee, and Shane Gostisbehere was quarterbacking the top power play for Philly today. He didn't get a point, but in his previous game, he made up for that by having a power play goal and an assist and 6 shots on goal. That was on Wednesday. Then he had another goal on Saturday versus Buffalo. So Ghost Bear out of nowhere, looking maybe like the Ghost Bear of old. And obviously it's super early to say that, but it's pretty wild that he's on the top power play ahead of Provorov, ahead of Eric Gustafsson. I don't know how long it's going to last, but right now, I think that if you need defense, why not grab Shane Gostisbehere? Maybe this will turn out to be like when we recommended grabbing Jeff Skinner a little while ago when he was on the top line on Buffalo, but at least Gostisbehere is doing something. So it's not only because of his current deployment, he's also on a bit of a run right now. So I don't see why not give him a chance.
Well, you say that, but in today's game, Gostisbehere had 1 shot and nothing else. So you might say the run is over, and we should have a short leash or on our expectations for Gostisbehere.
But wait, can I make a counterpoint? He was +2. So he could have easily gotten in on one of those goals while he was on the ice. That's an IPP obvious sign that he was there for a goal and didn't get in on it. But I'm also seeing that he played 3 minutes on the power play compared to 1 minute for Provorov and Sanheim.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm not done. Like, I'm still very, like, first off, you said it's out of nowhere. It's absolutely out of nowhere. And you said it's kind of like Jeff Skinner, but not, because Gostisbehere actually has done something with this opportunity, which is also true. And I love that Gostisbehere is on the top power play. You're just saying, well, he's on this run. And I just want to point out the run technically ended today. There were no points.
Oh, no.
Not 6 shots. But yes, he's still on the top power play. So I am still interested, Elon, for as long as he's there.
Okay, so next up, what are we doing? So what are we on here? Oucheries, right? Oh yeah, because Hello Giroux. We have some sort of a theme that we follow with this show, though in the end I like to jump around a little bit. So Cam Talbot is back. Let's do another goalie. He stopped 27 of 28 in the 3-1 win over LA on Friday. Then Kaapo Kakkonen, who was really good in Talbot's absence, was also good in the win over LA again on Saturday. So now at this point, it's kind of a similar situation to Washington, right? Where it's hard to know who's going to be the starter. Like, yeah, Samsonov is back. Yeah, Talbot is back. These are the guys who we thought were going to be the starters going into the year. But Kakkonen and Vanacek have both been good in their absence. So should we just assume, similar to Samsonov, that like, sure, maybe Talbot gets first run, but it might be closer to a 50-50 thing than we were expecting? Or should we think, no, like Talbot was brought in as a starter in the offseason. He's been good. It's not his fault. Like, it's not like Samsonov where he disappointed in a couple games. Talbot has been really good this whole time. So I'm curious to get your sense of the goalie situation in Minnesota, if you think it's similar to Washington or if it's a different kind of situation.
I think it's similar enough. I also thought Toronto might be the analogy, although I think Talbot owners have a little more to worry about than Anderson owners based on their challengers' play. Kakkonen has been the better goalie this year over Cam Talbot, and I think Cam Talbot managers do need to keep an eye on how things are developing. He seemed like a sure thing starter, but of course, being out of the lineup for so long really opened the door for Kakkonen, who took advantage of it, which isn't hard when you play goalie in Minnesota for a team that just plays such a strong defensive game and protects them so well. So that might be the difficulty for Cam Talbot, is that Kakkonen can't really be that exposed or knocked down from the perch that he's found himself on. I still think that Talbot is the incumbent, and if I roster him, I'm not getting too sweaty about it, but I am at least thinking about it and looking. If Kakkonen is a free agent in my league and I need goaltending, I think I'm definitely open to the possibility that they're in a timeshare.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be tough now to decide if you had Kakkonen while Talbot was out. Do you hold? Do you not? I guess we'll see what happens over the next couple of games. But one thing we are learning is it's good to be a goalie in Minnesota. Somehow Dubnyk wasn't able, like even Dubnyk in this great spot, he couldn't handle it, but most goalies do pretty well there. Like we talked about Alex Stalock before, maybe he was playing a bit over his head. It's a good place to be as a goalie. And this Minnesota team is doing really well. 2 wins on the weekend versus LA. Like I said, this whole top 6 seems worth rostering at this point, especially for a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday schedule next week. You know, Fiala, Greenway, and Eriksson Ek doing well. Kaprizov, Zuccarello, and Victor Rask all pointing like every game pretty much. Zuccarello now has 11 points in 7 games on the season. So how about this? I'll just throw a ranking to you. If someone is like listening, like, okay, I want to go grab a Minnesota player for this good schedule next week. Here's how I'd rank them, Brian. I'd go Kaprizov, Fiala, and whatever. It doesn't really matter. They're probably, neither of them are probably available. So it doesn't matter who we put ahead in that between those two. But after that, I'll say Zuccarello, Eriksson Ek, Greenway, and Victor Rask. But honestly, I like them all.
Yeah, me too. This is like the 4th edition of our weekly Minnesota Wild forward rankings, and yours sounds right. And I'm still just going to be okay with the fact that Zach Parise is not a part of it.
Okay, so that's, we don't have to go too much into Minnesota moving forward, except to say that maybe Minnesota would be a good team to bet on winning some games this week because they've been winning so far. Maybe they'll continue. Brian, if people want to go place some bets on the Minnesota Wild, why don't you tell them how they can do that?
Yeah, we're looking at a fun month for sports, and by extension, a fun month to make some extra money if you want to try and do that with my bookie. Let me do that again. Yeah, it's gearing up to be a fun March for sports, and by extension, a fun time to try and make some extra money with my bookie. With March Madness right around the corner, my bookie is offering a shot at a share of $10,000 with the My Bracket contest, and it's only a single dollar entry. Plus, there's a ton of NHL and NBA action on tap, and they've got not one, but 2 UFC pay-per-view cards to bet on. So regardless of your favorite player or team, you've got the choice from thousands of lines and prop bets on all major sports, and it's all in one place at MyBookie. Do yourself a favor, get a head start by signing up today with the promo code Karlsson, like Eric's last name, and they'll match your first deposit halfway up to $1,000. That's free cash credited to your account instantly on top of your deposit. The best part is you always have access to the action, whether you're at home or on the go. Visit the website online or on your phone at mybookie.ag and use the promo code Karlsson to grab yourself a deposit bonus. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. And of course, if you are going to play with MyBookie, you might want to make a loss limit and a win limit and stop when you reach those limits. For more information on responsible gambling, you can head to responsiblegambling.org.
Okay, so thanks for that sponsor. Now let's finish off the show with some cold streaks and then some hot streaks. Let's go to Montreal. There's, of course, big news earlier in the week that Claude Julien was fired. I saw a lot of tweets suggesting that actually like the Habs were playing well and maybe Julien was paying the price for Carey Price, no pun intended, really struggling and letting him and the Habs down. Price is having a dismal season, Brian. He has an .888 save percentage in 12 games so far. He was last seen letting in 5 goals on 29 shots in the 6-3 loss to Winnipeg on Thursday. Meanwhile, Jake Allen is somehow doing even better than his bounce back .927 save percentage 2019-20 season with the Blues. Like we already thought last year, wow, Jake Allen's looking a lot better. Hopefully he could be somewhat as good as that this year with the Habs. But like I said, doing even better. He stopped 19 of 21 in the 2-1 overtime loss to the Jets on Saturday, bringing him to I never updated that. Bringing him to .929 save percentage on the season in 8 games. Plus, it should be better, right? This has always been my theory that I think an overtime goal against shouldn't count against a goalie's save percentage because, you look at 19 saves on 21 shots and think, oh, that's not even that good. But it's probably a lot harder to save a shot in 3-on-3 overtime. But anyways, all that to say, Jake Allen has been so good. And Brian, are we at a point where we have to seriously consider Allen as a threat to take starts away from Price with Ducharme at the helm? Like, just like with Bob and Drieger in Florida, the Habs are still like right in the thick of the playoff race over in the North Division. They can't afford to like just wait for Price to get his game back on track while Allen is playing lights out, right? Like, I'm very curious to know, Brian, what should people do if they have Price on their team and or if they see Allen sitting in free agency?
It's really hard. If you have Carey Price on your roster and you were hoping for anything better this year than the past couple, I mean, maybe some of that's on you. You were right to hope. It's always okay to hope, but it's funny to see all these questions come out about, is Carey Price still elite? It's like we've been telling you for the last few years that Carey Price is no longer elite. It's been this way for a little while. This season in particular, Price ranks 36th out of 47 goalies who've seen roughly 10 games played worth of action by the Delta Fenwick save percentage metric. And Price has not looked convincingly good since 2016-17, which was the last time Price outperformed an average NHL goalie by any substantial measure. Now, I don't think Ducharme or the Habs are going to give up on Price, but I think Jake Allen probably has about the same amount of opportunity as Jack Campbell, even though Freddie Anderson is outplaying Carey Price. I still don't know that Allen has any more of an inside track to the job than Jack Campbell might. That said, I think there's room for it to be earned. So if you have Carey Price, you might want to find your nearest Habs fan in your division or league and see what the asking price will be for him there. And if you have Allen available, I feel like he might be a better version of, say, a Mike Smith or Mikko Koskinen, right? Where you're not going to see a whole lot of starts. You're not guaranteed to, but you'll see some nice rate stats.
Yeah, I don't know. I might disagree with you. I don't know. Okay, obviously it's very tricky to predict what's going to happen with goalies. I just feel like, first of all, Jake Allen got the start on Saturday, right? It wasn't a back-to-back. So that was at least a very small sample of them picking Allen over Price. And I just wonder if they can keep doing well with Allen in net. Like, the Habs have such a strong team. They brought in all these great pieces in the offseason. Why blow it waiting for Carey Price to get better? And obviously, though, that said, I think Carey Price can get better. And Brian, I honestly shouldn't be bragging. Like, I know you were saying how we told you that he hasn't looked as good over the past couple of years. I definitely am guilty of going into this season thinking like this is going to be a huge year for Carey Price. They brought in Jake Allen. Price is finally going to get rested and he can finally be the great goalie he can be. So I don't know, at this point, I just feel like if I had Jake Allen free agency, I would grab him right now if you can find a spot, just because I think there is a chance he gets a bit of a run.
Sure. So, okay, first to speak to your point, you're definitely right that part of the Carey Price hope this year was thinking, oh, there's a backup, which there hasn't been for years. So Carey Price doesn't have to play as much as before, can rest, and that plan has been executed this year. Carey Price has not played more than twice in a row and still is struggling. So I guess, Elon, my question to you with what you just said about liking Jake Allen,
Hit me.
do you see him as more that, like, just to be clear, do you see him as more than a timeshare goalie?
I could see it happening. Like, obviously, it really, like, I think the Habs need to go for it this year. They can't not make the playoffs because they played the wrong goalie. Like, that would be stupid. Like, they have Jake Allen. He's on a hot streak. So why not give him? I'm not saying like for the whole season, Allen will stick. But I think like right now for the short term, I could see Allen getting a bit of a run while Price like figures out his game or whatever. But obviously by next week, it'll be completely different because that's trying to predict goalies.
Yeah, I like, I'm not getting too bought in. If you want to take a swing, sure. And like I said, if you've got Mike Smith or Mikko Koskinen, you could swap them out for Allen, but I see them being about as much as you could hope Allen to be, but maybe with some better rates.
I mean, yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, the Habs are having some trouble outside of just their goaltending. Of course, they have had Josh Anderson out for a couple of games. The lines have been a bit weird. Like Toffoli playing with Suzuki and Drew, and it's a nice upgrade for him. But Anderson will be back, and we'll see how the lines shake out then with a new coach. Also, speaking of line shakeups, there's a lot of teams that have shaken up lines that looked to be consistent, like all from the beginning of the season until like this week, and we finally seen change. And well, that's not a sentence. And we've finally seen things change. And now it's time to really adjust some of our expectations for some players who have been bumped. And I want to start in Florida, where Jonathan Huberdeau has finally gotten onto the top line with Barkov. So it's been Huberdeau with Barkov and Carter Verhaeghe. So good news for Verhaeghe, by the way, who is like on a cold streak right now. He has 1 assist in his last 5 games. It's very hard to recommend dropping him if he's going to be playing on a line with Barkov and Huberdeau. But I think the one player who definitely needs to be off your roster because you're totally snoozing if you still have him is Anthony Duclair, who is now pointless in 4 games and was last seen on Saturday playing on the third line, bumped from the top line down to the third line to play with Eetu Luosterainen and Mason Marchment. So I can't think of any reason to hold Duclair while he is not on the top line or the second line.
Totally agree. And I was someone who tried to justify holding Duclair even when he was in the top 6 and just not doing a whole lot. Like there were a lot of signs that Duclair deserved better than what he was getting, which made him a tough but justifiable hold on your roster. But him being moved out of the top 6 is easily the straw or something heavier than a straw that breaks the camel's back. I just keep him on your watch list, though, to re-add him if he does end up back on the top line, because I liked what I saw there. And I haven't really found any explanation for why he was moved out of the top 6 and how long we might expect this to last. So yeah, if he finds his way back next to Barkov, I am interested again. But in the meantime, I am not.
Okay, so yeah, follow at Game Day Lines on Twitter, and you'll see the Panthers are good. They always tweet out line combinations for every practice, so you'll always get the update on what they're doing. For now, I have a feeling that Duclair isn't getting back there for a while. Why not stick with, Barkov and Huberdeau together? That's nice. But, the thing is, I would have thought then Duclair would go to the second line, but no, it was Frank Vetrano he's like the only big beneficiary of this change. Vetrano's gotten up to the second line to play with Hornqvist and Wenberg, and Vetrano has scored in 2 straight games. He's taken 3+ shots in each of his last 4 games. I always like Vetrano as like a stream when he has a good schedule because he's always good for shots. And recently they've been going in and he's playing, in the top 6. So I would definitely take Vetrano over Duclair. That's easy. I guess an interesting question would be more like Vetrano versus Verhaeghe. What do you care more about, a hot streak or better line mates?
I will probably go with Verhaeghe. I think you agree. I'll go with the better line mates over the hot streak, unless I'm really just picking for 1 or 2 games and believe in the hot hand. But you know me, I don't. Yeah. So I will go with Verhaeghe.
Okay, yeah, but definitely people take a look at Vetrano if Verhaeghe's already rostered. Yeah, I like this run that he's on, and he's always going to have a chance to score just because he takes all those shots, and he's playing with Patrick Hornqvist, who's having such a great season himself. Okay, on Carolina, the team that beat Florida on Saturday, they've also been shaking things up. Jesper Fast jumped to the top line, and he declared Brock McGinn down to the third line and out of fantasy relevance. So forget about Brock McGinn now. That was a really nice run while he was there. Jesper Fast, he has assists in 2 straight games, and it's got to be worth a look playing on the top line with Aho and Svechnikov. Svechnikov. That seems like exactly the same as Carter Verhaeghe playing with Barkov and Huberdeau. So are you with me that Jesper Fast and Carter Verhaeghe are like basically the same and take the one who has a better schedule if you want one of them?
Yeah, I would. Jesper Fast is no stranger to being this nice third piece on a top line. We saw him do it last year with Ryan Strome and Artemi Panarin. Of course, no power play deployment limits him, but Jesper Fast is as holdable as McGinn was before. So if you grab McGinn, just swap him out.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe like McGinn looked a little bit better just because he was on like a really nice tear and he was scoring a lot of goals. Fast seems like he'll be more of an assist guy, which makes sense. When you're playing with Aho and Svechnikov, you shouldn't be taking too many shots, I don't think. I do have a player I'm very concerned about on Carolina. He's on my couple teams, so I need some advice, Brian. Nino Niederreiter is pointless in 4 games, and I don't know what to do with this guy because he had such a great start to the season, 12 points in his first 16. And I've never even been into Nino Niederreiter. I don't know how I ended up with him on my roster. I streamed him in, and then he just kept on scoring. There was nothing I could do. He's been playing, with Trocheck and Nichas recently, so it's not as if his deployment has changed too much, but he's just gone cold. I like Carolina's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday schedule next week, so I'll obviously hold him at least for a Monday, Tuesday. But if he goes pointless in those 2 games as well, I feel like I'm very tempted to drop him.
I noticed that Niederreiter's minutes have also been cut in these recent games too. So not only has he gone quiet, but he's seeing less time. He's been between 12 and a half and 13 and a half minutes for 3 straight games before still not even seeing 15 minutes in Niederreiter's most recent outing. And one of those games was Nino's first 0-shot effort of the season. So a couple signs to be alarmed. I would watch the Monday game. If there's enough promising there, I'd watch the Tuesday game and then let go if those minutes, shots, and points are showing no sign of reappearing.
Okay, and then another cold streak. Let's go to Dallas. Jamie Benn had a really hot start to the year. Only 2 points in his last 8 games. So we've heard this story before, right? Jamie Benn already had a bad year last year, but then, he showed us a nice playoff run and we thought, oh, maybe with some rest, he can be good. Then he started hot this year. So he was intriguing. But at this point, is this just going to be another 2019-20 Jamie Benn all over again? Or do you see any reason for optimism that he could bounce back?
Nope. I'm not even going to spend, I feel like we spent so much time talking about the Dallas Stars, who are not a good team this year. And I've seen arguments lately that they never were. And they just had Anton Khudobin go wild for them in the playoffs last season. And that's why they ended up being a Stanley Cup finalist, but they didn't actually deserve to be there. I actually see Jamie Benn technically overperforming at 5-on-5 so far this year. So there's not a lot to like about him going forward. And I would not be too attached. I would actually, the guy that comes to mind that we've already talked about on this episode is Phil Kessel. If you had to choose between one of them the rest of the season, who would you choose?
No, I'd quit the league. It's no fun. Obviously, there's some upside with these guys. They could go have a good multi-point game every once in a while, like we've seen. But yeah, I don't want to be depending on either of them for sure. So that's a shame.
Jesper Fast over both of them.
Well, I don't know. Ben has peripherals. Yeah.
Just right. So there's peripherals plus just that you might want to stream that spot out. Even in the Cupful, it's a league. Every roster has 18 players. There's 252 players rostered. I would not consider.
Ben would be tough. Ben would be tough to hold.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely consider dropping him.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to Chicago now. So I wanted to bring up Kevin Lankinen, who's on a bit of a cold streak lately. Actually, I was getting a little bit concerned with Malcolm Subban playing a couple of really good games in a row.
But then interrupt you please just right away because you say he's been on a cold streak lately, but tonight he has stopped 41. I don't want to jinx anything, but 41 of 42 shots through 50 minutes of play against Detroit, who have somehow put 42 shots on net. I guess that's something Chicago is capable of doing, is allowing that many opportunities against Detroit. But I don't know, Elon, maybe the cold streak has been snapped.
Okay, so they can just skip this part. Anyways, I was just going to say, and I was going to bring up today's game. I was going to say that Lankinen had a couple rough starts versus Columbus and Carolina recently, which was surprising, right? Because just all season, every time Lankinen's played, he's put up sparkling numbers. So, and then that combined with Malcolm Subban having a couple good games started getting me to think that, I wonder if Chicago's starting to slowly transition into more of a tandem situation. Though if this weekend is any indication, Subban had a clunker, 5 goals against on 32 shots versus Detroit, and now Lankinen is putting up a gem. So I guess not much to say. Clearly, we know your thoughts. You're super high on Team Lankinen. And then let's transition now to some hot streaks. Patrick Kane was pointless versus the Wings on Saturday, but still sat at 31 points in 22 games for a 116-point base going into today. And I see Patrick Kane has had a multi-point game today against Detroit. So he's on pace for the best season of his career, which is kind of like not something people were expecting this year, but why not? Patrick Kane just always surprises us. He and Alex DeBrincat, who also has a multi-point game today, just they're meshing so well. DeBrincat now riding a 6-game point streak. Like I don't even have a question for you about these guys. They're just like so amazing. Maybe if you want a really deep cut, 35-year-old Carl Soderberg is on a monster tear as well, riding a 4-game point streak with 8 points in his last 7 games going into today. And I see Chicago scored 5 goals today. Let's see. Did Soderberg? Oh, nothing for Soderberg, but 4 shots. So I don't know if you want someone deep. We've already mentioned some other guys like your Jesper Fasts and whoever, but throw Soderberg on the list of players who are on hot streaks. Not in as good of a spot. I think he's playing with Kurashev and like Matthias Janmark. I'll bring that up also right now over on Frozen Tool. Soderberg with Janmark and Kurashev. Yeah, so not the best line mates, but he's on the top power play, right? So again, everything's looking good for Carl Soderberg. It's a decent stream.
Yeah, he seems to do this every so often, right? Remember the days when he was the Avalanche's depth behind McKinnon, Renton, and Landeskog? He was like the only other guy who seemed to produce on a semi-regular basis. So it's nice to see Soderberg show back up on the scene. This is what he does, suddenly coming out of nowhere to provide some legit secondary scoring. Love this deployment for him that he's on the top power play and a nice short-term stream, but not as nice as Colin Blackwell over with the Rangers, who's also on the top power play. He just came to mind to me. I mean, we had him planned to talk about on the show.
Do it now.
Yeah, I had a choice to add Blackwell or Soderberg going into today's action. And I chose Blackwell just because all week I've been like, okay, I think I'm going to add Blackwell today. And I don't. I'm like, I should have. He got a point. The next time, I should have. He got a point. And then finally I added him today. 1 goal on 5 shots, 3 hits too, for what that's worth. That seems to pop up in his game from time to time. But yeah, top power play deployment, playing on a line with Ryan Strome and Chris Kreider that seems to be clicking pretty nicely. So if I had to pick a short-term stream, I would go Blackwell over Soderberg. But they're both decent choices.
Yeah, these are the deep cut section of the podcast, but maybe not, right? Like Soderberg and Blackwell, if they're on this top power play, they can produce like they've been doing. Rangers went cold again today, losing 4-1 to Boston. But before that, a lot of players were on hot streaks, right? Kreider had like 5 goals his previous 3 games, Strome 7 his last 4. Basically, everyone was doing well in the Rangers except for Mikko Zibanejad, who continues to go cold. So sad for me and anyone who's holding him. And we're still hoping for better times moving forward. Here's another random name from the Rangers, Ryan Lindgren, 4 assists in his previous 3 games before today. Obviously, the Rangers only scored 1 goal today. And it was a power play goal from Blackwell, from Lafreniere, and Keandre Miller, who's another defenseman on the team, who probably you want more than Ryan Lindgren. But I don't know. We brought up Gostisbehere earlier as a defenseman to grab. I assume we want Gostisbehere more than Lindgren. Like, who is Lindgren? He was on a hot streak, so I thought I'd bring him up.
Okay. Sorry, I wasn't all ready for this.
I had a classic who is he highlighted.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed it.
And actually, while you're looking up the answer to this, Patty's reminding me that Patrick Kane not only having a big game today, but he scored his 400th goal. So there you go. Patrick Kane keeps on putting up these accolades. But Brian, Ryan Lindgren, who's this guy?
23 years old, a 2nd-round pick of the Boston Bruins back in 2016, 49th overall, who looks like his 2nd season as a full-time NHLer. Last year, 14 points in 60 games. This is just like, I'm reading Hockey DB to you, Elon. I don't know who Ryan Lindgren is. You're saying long story short, you're not interested in this I'm not interested. I don't know this guy. I've never really heard of him. I think you can probably look past him and not regret it too much. Although he is seeing, he's seeing top 4 minutes and top pairing minutes some nights. So he's definitely getting some good time on ice and is doing some good things with his peripherals. 5 hits, 3 blocks in his last game. Sometimes puts up 4s in one of those categories. So definitely worth a look if you're looking for I don't know if I'd say even a 4th defenseman, but a 5th or a 6th.
Okay, yeah. I mean, he has 4 points in his last 4 games. Probably not going to keep it up, but like you're saying, there are some peripherals there. So another name in your very deep leagues. There you go. Ryan Lindgren. Let's do another hot streak now. Thomas Chabot. So that's a defenseman you might be a little bit more interested in, even more than Shane Gostisbehere. He's got 5 assists in his last 3 games. He missed a couple of games after being hurt, but since he's come back, he's been great. Chabot had a slow start to the season, right? But he's really heating up now, up to 14 points in 20 games for a 57-point pace. Do you think like putting the slow start with the hot streak he's on right now, and does that make that 57-point pace he's on something that he can sustain moving forward? Like altogether, is that around what we should expect?
I think so. I think Thomas Chabot is really, really, really good, and you can see it when he's on the ice. Like he makes some really clever plays, seems to know how to set up some offense, and he's got crazy ice time. Right? He saw 29 and a half minutes a few games ago against Montreal and is like almost always above 26 minutes a night. The Sens are going to ride this guy into the ground over the next, well, hopefully decade, although I hope so. I'm not going to jinx anything. I just hope so. And I think so long as they're doing that, and so long he's consistently, I mean, there's not much challenge. Although Eric Brandstrom coming on in Ottawa is a pretty nice offensive defenseman alternative, but it's still Chabot's job for sure. And I like a lot of what I'm seeing from him. This is just a chance for me to be happy about an Ottawa Senator, right? Thanks for offering that to me.
Well, I'll give you another one because Ben and Lewis on short shifts poured some cold water themselves on Drake Batherson, who was on a goal streak. And Lewis is here in the chat, so I could hold him to task. So maybe Batherson was listening because he was like, yeah, you think I'm not going to be able to sustain this goal streak? Well, he scored again on Saturday versus the Flames just to spite Ben and Lewis. So that's now goals in 5 straight games for Drake Batherson and goals in 6 of his last 7 games. So Brian, are you going to agree or disagree with Ben and Lewis's assessment that Drake Batherson being a premier goal scorer is not something that could be sustained?
Well, premier goal scorer, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking me, but right now he has 7 goals on 52 shots. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. Like he might take about 2 shots a night. He might score on more than 10% of those. So over the course of a season, that doesn't add up to premier goal scoring numbers, like maybe a 25 goal guy, but he gets some real good power play deployment. And I think he could legit carry a 55, 60 point pace, which is really nice to say after having seen him get these really weird, like semi benchings at some point over the year so far, and was threatened to be a healthy scratch at 1.2 in Ottawa. So yeah, he has 5 goals on his last 12 shots. That's not going to keep up. I acknowledge that, but I actually about a week ago had been looking at a bunch of guys whose shooting percentages were unsustainably low, and Batherson was one of them. So I honestly think this is all just a correction. And if you look at him pacing the way he's pacing with a goal every like 4 games, that could be a fair expectation for what to expect over the course of the full season.
Okay, yeah. So definitely you're saying grab him if he's still out there.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to keep up a goal every game, but you're saying you've liked what you've seen under the hood even beyond this stretch. So that's great. Good for the Sens, who are like winning some games all of a sudden, looking pretty good. If they could get the goaltending, we'll see if what's his name, Joey Decord might get a game next week. I've been hearing, and I actually have him in one of my dynasty leagues, so I'm curious to see if he's going to do anything with that start. So Columbus. Oh, here's something we actually talked about last week. And I remember that I brought up how Elvis Merzlikins was injured. And then you gave a long reason why people shouldn't grab Eunice Korpisalo because he's been really bad this year. And in fact, he generally hasn't even been that great for his whole career, aside from a couple of good stretches. And you said that whole thing. And then I remember afterwards, I was like, I don't know. I'd probably still grab Eunice Korpisalo. And you're like, what? Weren't you listening? And I was like, I don't know. And so, I don't know, since that, he hasn't won a game, but he had 2 930 plus save percentage games versus Chicago and Nashville, and he got the start again today. So for volume, you're definitely enjoying Korpisalo. Today, he led in 3 goals on 29 shots against Nashville in the 3-1 loss. So all of a sudden, Columbus doesn't score, which is weird because before they were having all of these like 6-5 type games. And now this week, when they're starting to get somewhat decent goaltending, now they can't put goals on net. So I'm sure Tortorella's having a great time over there. So maybe we could call it a push in terms of if who was right or wrong about whether or not you should add Korpisalo, because I think he was good for volume, but obviously didn't get you a win. So it's not helping you in a lot of leagues. And here's a question for you moving forward, because Merzlikins, I think, is still going to be out long term. So you're going to be seeing a lot of starts from Korpisalo. But from what we've been seeing from Detroit today, as they continue to get shellacked, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Bernier over Thomas Greiss. So moving forward, Korpisalo versus Bernier, who would you want?
I'm going to take Jonathan Bernier. I guess you would hope that if you took Corpusalo, that Columbus figures out the rest, like everything all at once. But I also don't know that Corpusalo can really hold himself steady until, as we mentioned last week, that defensive system is really in place in Columbus. And I want to see that happen for over a week before I get too excited about Corpusalo, because I think he really does thrive only when that protection is there. And Merzlikins will be back at some point too to challenge. And right now, Greiss does not look like much of a challenger, even when healthy. So for that reason, I would still go Jonathan Bernier. I'm feeling like you, Elon, just talking up Bernier all the time. Do you disagree? Are you still going to stand by Corpusalo?
I think you have a better chance to get wins with Corpusalo.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe you're right, better rates than I don't know. I think it's a really tough one. Honestly, I don't
Depends
really
on
know
what
the
you're
answer.
looking for. Like you'll see more saves for Bernier, and I think you'll see at least as good a save percentage. You are
Yeah.
going to lose out on wins, but I would trade off a little bit there for more on the other two.
Yeah, and plus I should like I said, like Bernier has won 3 games over the last few games, so like it's not as if he won't get any wins if he keeps playing well. That usually a goalie playing well helps you win a game. And like I said, Detroit's taking a lot of shots today. I don't know, what a weird team, what a weird situation, but at least put those guys in the same tier along with the John Gibson, right? Like it's like goalies who are going to play a lot. And they could be good, they could be bad, but they're going to play a lot and have shown glimpses of being good at the very least. Maybe one last hot streak, or maybe a couple. Okay, Nick Leddy. How's Nick Leddy on this list, Brian? He has 8 assists.
I don't know. I don't even want to acknowledge that he's on this list.
8 assists in his last 9 games, going into today, where he picked up another assist. So make that 9 assists in his last 10 games. Nick Leddy is someone that we've hated for so long because he's held a top power play spot on the Islanders, keeping players that we thought should have had more upside, like your Ryan Pulak's, like out of that spot. Now Leddy's off the top power play, so you think good. And then last couple of years, he's been like not even a 30-point guy. And all of a sudden, he's scorching. He's getting a point every single game. So I know that we're like upset about this because it's making us question the world and whether we're just in a simulation and if anything is even real. But assuming that the world is real and we're still going to be playing fantasy tomorrow and Nick Leddy's still in a lot of people's free agent list, at what point do they need to just go and grab him and ride the hot streak?
I guess in line with the rest of our advice this episode, now just go get him and then know that it's going to fizzle. Know also that 5 of the assists on this run have been secondaries, just a lot more secondary points than primary points, which I think is the reason. Like secondary assists, we mentioned a few times on the show for anyone who's not familiar. It's just like if you are the last person to touch the puck before the goal was scored, there's a like reasonable chance that you weren't so incremental in making the play happen and you just happened to be in the right place at the right time to be able to cash in. So that's the reason why to distrust anybody whose secondary assist rates are through the roof, which includes Nick Leddy right now. I would just shake my head. Like, I don't know. I'm so scarred from all our past experiences with Nick Leddy that I don't even know if I could bring myself to add him despite this hot run he's on. But in the same vein of, I guess, Scott Lawton, Joel Farabee would be sacrilege, I know, because of how like super hot he is. But you could go ahead and add him until he's not hot anymore. I think this is like, he might be the defense equivalent to Pavel Zacha.
Oh, okay. That's a good analogy, I think. Leddy, by the way, looks like he did get the most power play of all the Islanders today. And his assist was a power play assist on a goal by Oliver Wahlstrom, who had a goal and an assist. He's a rookie, and he had 2 power play points today. So not much even strength ice time, but he got some time on the power play and was producing. So there's a deep cutter for those people who like dynasty leagues or keeper content. There's the name, Oliver Wahlstrom. Not that I have much to say about him.
Yeah, Wallstrom is on a nice little run himself. 5 points in his last 4 now. And a lot of that is because he's playing with JG Pajot, who is also just going off right now, which is also not sustainable. So don't get swept up. But another guy who's on a hot streak that you might want to look at for the short term. But yeah, Oliver Wahlstrom making an impact somehow, seeing 10 minutes of ice a night on a 4-game streak. I'm not sure. This would be a fun thing to look up. I don't know if any of our listeners have the capacity to do it, but what the longest point streak is for a player who during that point streak saw fewer than 11 minutes a night.
That would be a fun question. Maybe I wonder how many you need to break that record. Oliver Wahlstrom is definitely surprising.
He's up to 4.
Okay. Yeah, normally you don't expect any points with that low deployment. So Brian, I guess that's it for everything we had planned. But then right before we started the show, we discussed a couple of things. We're like, oh, let's throw it on. So you were mentioning that you're interested in Eli in You mentioned that you were interested in Eli Tolvanen, who's been on the top power play on Nashville. So why don't you tell people why Tolvanen has piqued your interest?
Yeah, I'm not going to say I'm interested in him, but I'm going to say he's at least raised my eyebrow on that top power play, which is very nice. And also at 5-on-5, he's found himself playing with Granlund and Philip Forsberg. So we've seen him get very, very short looks in Nashville in the past, but now he's up to 15 minutes of ice a night, which is not something he's ever really seen in his past looks. And he's also got 11 shots over his last 4 games playing on the top line and the top power play. And like I said, I'm going in circles here, putting up points, doing that too, which is key to probably holding that kind of deployment. So he's definitely now on my watch list. I don't know that I'm going to, like, he's had this blue chip pedigree and been an exciting prospect name for so long and has failed to deliver in his cups of coffee to date. So I come in with tempered expectations, but it's exciting to see a glimpse of hope here when there has not been one in his previous 7 to 15 NHL games.
So Brian, in a keeper league, in a dynasty league, do you like Oliver Wahlstrom or
Oh
Eli
my God.
Tolvanen?
You
That's
know
too
I'm
hard.
not the right person to ask this. I think I would lean, I don't know. I would lean Wallstrom, but
Who
that's
knows?
only because he hasn't had as long to disappoint me as Tolvanen has. That's
I
what
know who knows.
many of my prospect picks come down to.
I know who knows. It's Victor Nuno and Jesse Severa on the Fantasy Hockey Life podcast. So tweet at Victor and he'll tell you who's better between Tolvanen and Wallstrom. And then we had a tweet from a friend of ours, L.A. Frankie, who's very upset with Mark Stone. And I feel like a lot of his being upset at Mark Stone is just because Vegas hasn't played a lot of games recently. So it just feels like Stone isn't producing in forever. But yeah, he's been cold over his last 5 games, 1 assist in his last 5. He did have 16 points in his first 12 games, though. So when LA Frankie was like, can I have permission to, or let me get the exact wording of what LA Frankie said. He was like, what's going on with Mark Stone? He's begging to be dropped, but what would you advise owners in the keeper format? In a keeper format. So, I mean, like, I don't want to make
Please
fun,
don't
of course.
do it.
Don't drop. Yeah, hold Mark Stone. I'm sorry that he hasn't been good for 5 games. And I will point out the lines for Vegas have been a little weird lately and not necessarily in Stone's favor. He's been playing on a line with Chandler Stevenson and Alex Tucks, who was split from Pacioretty, who played in the last game with Riley Smith and Cody Glass, and then Marcia So, William Karlsson, and Nicholas Roy. So obviously Vegas is messing with their lines a little bit. And I guess it worked on a 3-2 win over Anaheim on Saturday. But like regardless, like Mark Stone is the top star on the team and he's not going to go cold for long.
Yeah, he's going to be okay. He's on a point per game pace for the full season, and I think looks okay there. By the way, Elon, you mentioned Nicholas Roy. You
Like Patrick? Roy. Are they related?
I don't think so.
Nicolas Roy.
Nicolas, I think is what
Nicolas Roy.
Okay. Yeah. Enough of this, our attempts at French pronunciation. Mark Stone, still good. Although I will mention one reason for LA Frankie to be legitimately tilting is like Mark Stone has never been a huge shooter, but this season he is deferring a lot more than usual. His shot rate at even strength is half almost of what it was the year before. And his first year, when he first got to Vegas, he was suddenly shooting more than he was shooting in Ottawa. And now his shot rates are actually back below where they were in Ottawa, which weren't great. So you can't even expect 2 shots a game from him right now, which is about as low as he got at 2 shots a game when he was back as a Senator. So it's a little disenchanting to see, and we'll see if that keeps up. But like the point should make up for whatever half a shot a game deficit there might be this year.
Yeah, I just feel like it's the kind of thing where Mark Stone has earned like a very long leash, like a whole season of long leash. Same with Mika Zibanejad, right? Like you're not going to drop him even though he's cold because he's earned like a long leash. And I think Mark Stone's probably earned even more of that than Zibanejad because he's been a star in the league for a little bit longer. But okay, with that, Brian, we've covered a whole lot of ground. So I think we're going to have to stop here. This has been a wild ride. Thank you so much to everyone who's listening to the show, making it to the end. If you made it all this way, why don't you tweet at us at Keep Mark Stone? No, that's so stupid. I like the idea of having a hashtag at the end, but I never could think of one. Anyways, thanks everyone for listening all the way to the end here. We hope you've enjoyed it. We'd love to get some feedback, right? If you like the show, if you think the show could be better or different in some sort of way, we're doing this for you. So tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson with your feedback. And if you do like this, and at Keeping Karlsson.
If you want to do a hashtag, you could always just do like hashtag like KK326 if
Oh,
you want to
that's
show specific feedback.
that's okay. I don't know. Just anything, just to hear from people would be nice, aside from just an advice question.
Say that.
Kevin Karlsson. Obviously, we're happy to answer all of your advice questions on Twitter, as we do all the time, but we'd also love feedback. Let us know what you think of the show. If you like the show, we'd obviously love a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts. That helps other people find the show. It doesn't cost you a thing. And then if you want to do something that helps the show and does cost you a small thing, we have our Patreon program over at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. We have just a really fun Discord community where it's really organized well, where you can ask advice questions and it makes their own threads, or we've got game day chats and just a whole bunch of other stuff going on. It's a blast. So why don't you check it out by becoming a patron at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. If you're listening to this on Monday, it's March 1st, which means you won't get charged for a whole month. You basically get a free trial. You can always cancel your patronage if you don't like it come March 31st. So take our free trial offer and become a patron of Keeping Karlsson. But okay, with that, Brian, I am done. So let's cue the outro music. And why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
I will, but before I do, shout out to the big spenders in the Cupful this week. Brett of the Blazing Turtles in Tier 2 San Jose spent $23 fab on Ryan Ellis. Nick in Tier 5 Anton, manager of the team Iron Lotus, spent $18 on John Gibson. And William of Jake and Bake in Tier 4 Sodertalje, I've never had to say that out loud on the podcast, but there it is, spent $17 on Josh Morrissey. You can hear more about those big spenders and all the other happenings in the Cupful on the Cupful Stat Attack, which is a podcast that is linked to in our show notes. And it's all about the Cupful. You should definitely check it out. And with that, I'm ready to read the script. And with that, I am ready to read the credits. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dauber Hockey and powered by our patrons. Logo art from BrandonWeeb.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. Research with help from Dauber Hockey, Frozen Pool, Dauber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, Charting Hockey, HockeyGoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, Roto World, and Yahoo!
Great job as always, Brian. We got a big week ahead. Like you said, the stream scheme came out. The Cupful Stat Attack is coming. We've got 2 big short shifts episodes with Ben and Lewis. And then I'll be back to talk with you about all the happenings of the first week of March next week. Looking forward to it.
Until then, remember, fantasy hockey is for everyone.
All right. Question for you, Brian, before we leave. Tell me that I should not, because I'm like definitely...
Don't do it.
I have a trade offer that seems like I lose, but also I just want to make sure I'm not being dumb. But I could trade Taylor Hall, get him out of my life.
I can't believe you have Hall and Zibanejad and are doing as well as you are.
Well, this week I got killed.
But like, you have been one of the top teams in the Cupful, right?
Yeah, but it's falling apart now. Nino has slowed down.
But you've done it all without it's impressive. You've done all this without, like, what are they? Like, technically your 2nd and 3rd round picks.
Like, I guess Zibanejad's like my 1st round pick. Like, my top spenders in the auction were like Zibanejad, Hall, and Tavares. And Tavares,
but just to draw like a snake equivalent.
Sure. Okay. So, anyways, Taylor Hall, who sucks, I could trade him for Andre Palat and Rupe Hintz.
No.
Palat's doing so much better.
Palat had a great week, but Elon, look at your, like, so you lost to Lewis, who had the top score in Sweden, and you would have beaten like 10 other teams.
Yeah.
Don't panic.
I won't.
Can you imagine when Hall and Zibanejad get going?
If/when
you're in real great shape.
I've had some really good trade offers over the season that I'm started. Like, I know that you even said that I should take Pedersen for Zibanejad. I could have gotten Ehlers for Hall at one point, but oh well. What you gonna do? This is a blast. Thanks everyone in the chat room. Okay, and I appreciate Tecker saying don't do it. So Hall for Panarin. I'll do that.
One.
I mean, do you think I could get that? Probably not.
I don't know. Only one way to find out.
Why? What's Panarin doing? I know he's injured right now. Was he doing so badly before he got hurt?
Well,
I don't think so.
I don't think he's injured. He's
right. He's not injured.
Leave.
He has on leave. Oh, so it's like I take the risk of him not coming back. I feel like it's like a 1 week thing, right? It sounds like he just needs to get his affairs in order. Like, what's he going to be doing? What's he doing on this time off? I'd be curious to know. Did he travel to Russia?
I
Or
don't
is he
know.
just like in a hotel, like sort of talking to lawyers or something?
I have no idea.
I hope at some point someone lets us know. Panarin, by the way, is on a 105-point pace in the season. So yeah, it's just a matter of if he's going to come back soon. Brian, okay, well, fun to chat with you. I think we had a good show. Not many arguments, which was what I was hoping for. Lots of edit points, which is less of what I was hoping for.
I blew that part.
Some of it from me, but
a lot from me.
That's okay. Just I'll take. It should be like every edit point we like take our earnings and like split it by the edit points. JK.
I don't know. Honestly, if you wanted to start doing that, I would
I feel like it would like just then make me take more time doing the edit, and I'd rather just give you the earnings than have to track that.
Or you'd just be really, really hard on me. Oh, Brian, you
I edited something
make
when
up
you shouldn't
edit
have.
points. Yeah.
That's true. I would definitely take advantage. Okay, anything else we should chat about before we head on out of here?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, by the way, Dark is a really good show. It's blowing my mind. Every episode
is it on?
It's on Netflix. It's a German show, which I know might turn you off, like because it's like one of these shows where you have to like watch with subtitles, which I know some people are not into.
I love subtitles.
And I'm not even like an art house guy. Like it's like, you know, like I like this show, like I would generally be a little bit turned off. Like I'd rather just watch a show without subtitles, but this one is so good. And it's this story is just like every day now. And we have it where we're watching with our friend Emily, like we'd watch it together. And so we have to wait until the next scheduled time to watch the next episode. And it's torture. It's really good. But okay.
Oh, like they're just releasing weekly.
No, like the episodes are all out.
Oh, but you're timing it with your friend.
Yeah, so we need to like always schedule when we could watch it. And I just wish I could watch it right now. Did Ben, by the way, how did Ben do? How did you do? How did your couple matchup go?
I think I won.
Okay, and did Ben win?
I'm on your leagues now. Ben is down by 1.45 points.
Oh, but I think he has like a 2-point correction.
Stat correction.
Yeah, so Ben's probably gonna win, I think.
Who's he? He's
Little King Trash.
Oh yeah, he has Dustin Brown, so he's gonna get a point, and he might win. Hang on. With the stat correction, I think he's scheduled to win by 0.05 points. So 1/5 of a hit.
Wow. So a save.
No.
A save is, or not a save.
A save is 0.35. A hit is 0.25.
Damn.
0. Okay, well, great. 0.05.
So lucky for
the
Ben.
Slowest possible.
His team really let him down today.
Or no, it's not.
So like he was projected to win by like 20 points going into the day.
And you told him not to worry.
Well, in the end, he won, so he didn't have to worry.
Well, he's gonna. We'll see. He might win 228.95 to 228.9. That's the lowest possible margin of victory.
That's wild. Yeah, we've had a few of those on the stat attack. They brought up these like 0.05 losses and wins. That's pretty crazy. And then you are 247, 235. Oh, so you're golden. Good job, Brian. Why
is he still projected to get more? He's projected for 4 more points, even though all his games are done.
I guess it just goes to show how much you should trust these projections. Maybe there was like a postponed game that's no longer like showing here. Maybe there was originally supposed to be like a Winnipeg Vancouver game at like 10 p.m.
Could you imagine if he lost because of that Shesterkin like 3-minute replacement where he came in and gave up a goal and left?
You know, he took the loss in that game. It ended up being the losing goal. It's just Shesterkin has a worse record now. Poor guy. So hey, Ilya Sorokin, Brian, with a shutout. Are you going to hold on? What are you going to do?
I don't know.
How many games do you need from John Gibson to equal 1 Ilya Sorokin start?
Oh, well, Gibson was awful this week.
Gibson is giving you 2.4 is the most points he's been able to give you since February 18th in a game.
I think he might have been a negative for me on the week. 1.75 points for me this week.
You know, okay, so what's we should have brought up this shutout, eh? Like Sorokin doesn't play much, but when he does play, didn't he get a shutout in his last game?
Yeah, he's gotten 2 consecutive shutouts like 14 days apart or whatever.
Islanders go Saturday, Sunday this weekend, so there's like potentially both against Buffalo. Oh man,
wow!
You got to hold. He's going to give you 12 points in that game.
Him for 6 days to do nothing.
But you're going to get 12 points, and maybe he gets another start
between. Oh no, Elon, he doesn't play. It's not back-to-back against Buffalo. One of those is postponed.
When?
He plays March 2nd, 4th, and 6th. New Jersey, Buffalo, Buffalo.
So does that mean my schedule tool is wrong?
It
I'm
might
at.
be.
Oh my god. If it's
Why
off,
don't you use the zero gar
I
tool
guess
I sent you?
I don't know. I made this fancy spreadsheet a while ago, and it works really well for me. And now it's a bummer that the schedule keeps changing. Okay, I'll look into that. I hope other people aren't depending on this and it has the wrong schedule. When did this game get postponed?
I don't. I'm just looking. I mean, Yahoo might be wrong, but
Okay, I'll look into it. All right, we're still live. Sorry about that. Bye, everybody.
I don't
hope,
know. Thanks.
hope you enjoyed the post game show.
Yeah, thanks to the chat room. And Lewis is pointing out that Ben had 12 extra games played
Okay,
and still just eked it out.
well, that's what it takes to win, right?
It's not how you win, it's how many.
And it's also the strategy, right? He put himself in a situation to have 12 extra games.
Thanks, thanks everyone for being here. You're the greatest.
See ya.
All right.